Chapter 21:11. Although Ji Tianxing wasn't a martial saint, he had defeated 95% of the martial saint experts. Although he still couldn't defeat an 8th stage realm martial saint and above. But in terms of massacring 1,000,000 demons, even a 9th stage realm martial saint couldn't be compared to him. Because he had grasped an ultimate skill which didn't belong to this realm and didn't belong to this world. Right from the start, this 1 against 1,000,000 war was a one-sided massacre. What was unbelievable and laughable was that it was Ji Tianxing who massacred 1,000,000 demons alone. He rampaged through the demons' campsite and massacred wantonly, as though he was a steel giant dealing with ants all over the ground. Every move he made and every move he casually executed was enough to crush numerous ants to death. The ants on the ground tried their best, but they weren't able to hurt him at all. Unknowingly, 1 hour had passed. The west campsite had sunk into complete chaos. The barracks, palaces and fortifications within a radius of 300 miles had all been destroyed by Ji Tianxing. This entire region had turned into ruins, and there wasn't a single intact building. What entered his eyes was scorched earth and ruins, deep pits and ravines. At least 400,000 demon soldiers had died under his sword, turning into dregs and dust. He had long been soaked in demon blood, and his white robe had turned into a wet purple robe, while his black hair had turned into red hair. Even the pitch-black and icy cold burial of Heaven's sword was stained with a layer of blood. The hundreds of thousands of demons who were lucky enough to survive were terrified to the extreme and didn't dare to lay a hand on Ji Tianxing anymore. Everyone's impression and feeling towards Ji Tianxing was only left with one word: killing God. Only these 2 words could describe his unparalleled ferocity. Wei Yu, Yi Xianqing, Xing Pingji and the others had been lying in ambush at the periphery of the campsite. From the start of Ji Tianxing's massacre until now, for an entire hour, everyone was on tenterhooks and extremely nervous. There were several times when everyone almost couldn't help but want to take action to save Ji Tianxing. After all, Ji Tianxing was facing 100,000 strong army alone, and no matter how they looked at it, he would definitely die. However, Ji Tianxing was safe and sound. Everyone suppressed their impulses and continued to wait for the signal. This 1 hour was very short for Ji Tianxing. To Yi Xianqing, Wei Yu, and the others, it was exceptionally long and torturous. Finally, Ji Tianxing saw that the time was ripe. He waved his palm and shot out a dazzling golden light. Shwa! The golden light flew into the sky and immediately turned into a golden dragon that was over 3,000 meters long. It raised its head and let out an earth-shattering dragon roar. Roar! The divine might of the golden dragon was clearly displayed. This was the signal that Ji Tianxing and the generals had agreed upon. Since the signal had been sent out, it meant that the time had come. Without any hesitation, Wei Yu, Yi Xianqing, and the others immediately ignited the talismans in their hands. In the next moment, dozens of divine thunder talismans and divine light talismans exploded under the defensive formation around the camp. Boom, 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 boom. With the deafening explosion, dazzling lightning and divine white light immediately illuminated the entire camp. The dark sky within a radius of a few hundred miles became dazzling. The light was so dazzling that people could not open their eyes. The terrifying explosion not only brought about loud sounds and dazzling light, but also astonishing destructive power. The defensive formation around the camp was immediately blasted with more than a dozen holes and gaps. The entire formation shook violently, and many cracks appeared on its surface. But this was only the beginning of the destruction and disaster. Ji Tianxing had distributed more than 100 talismans to the generals. The 5 generals and more than 20 generals followed closely behind and released the star talismans. Boom, 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 boom. There was another earth-shattering explosion around the camp. The silver light of the stars soared into the sky, like the bright moon in the sky. The brilliant star divine fire tore open the gap in the defensive formation and expanded it by several times. Tens of thousands of devil soldiers guarding the gap were also engulfed by the star divine fire and burned to ashes on the spot. After this round of bombardment, the defensive grand formation, which was already broken, became riddled with holes and extremely tattered. Wei Yu, Yi Xianqing, and the others had completed their mission. They immediately sent out the signal and ordered the army outside the camp to attack. In the next moment, the 500,000 human soldiers lying in ambush outside the camp let out shocking battle cries and surged towards the demon camp like a tide. The human army had finally attacked. The final battle had arrived. Wei Yu, Yi Xianqing, and the others firmly guarded the gap in the defensive formation and did their best to kill the demon soldiers that came to stop them. Although there were only 20 or so of them, and it was impossible for them to stop the charge of tens of thousands of soldiers, they needed to buy time. However, what they needed to do was to buy time. In just 100 breaths of time, the human army would be able to break into the camp. Fierce battles continued to take place. The 20 or so human generals were besieged by large numbers of demon soldiers and suffered destructive blows. They were quickly wounded by the demon soldiers. Their bodies were covered in blood, and their arms and legs were even cut off. But they stubbornly held on with their strong willpower. Finally, 100 breaths of time was up. The 500,000 human soldiers successfully passed through the gap in the formation and charged into the demon camp. When the two armies met, they immediately engaged in the fiercest battle. At the same time, Ji Tianxing, deep in the camp, increased the pace of his attack. He summoned Lan Kuan, Forefather Sanju, and the Golden Mountain King to charge with him and slaughter the demon soldiers on the ground. Lan Kuan was as large as a mountain. It sprayed out icy flames and rampaged across the battlefield. Forefather Sanju turned into a giant tree that was 10,000 zhang tall. He waved his 100,000 branches and swept through everything like sharp swords. He pushed forward. Everywhere he passed, all obstacles were flattened. No matter if it was the broken walls, the fortifications, or the bodies of the demon soldiers, they were all crushed to pieces. The Golden Mountain King roared excitedly. He swung his enormous golden hammer and smashed piles of demon soldiers. Each time the hammer smashed down, a deep pit would be left in the ground. The bottom of the pit was filled with demon corpses. His courageous charge was more like a game of whack-a-mole. As time passed, the casualties of the demon army increased. The scales of victory tilted in favor of the humans and gradually stabilized. This great battle that shook the heavens and earth continued for an entire day. Only in the middle of the night did the battle come to an end. All of the western camp had been completely destroyed. It had been flattened by the shockwaves of the battle. The million-strong demon army had been completely wiped out. Only 20,000 remained and they had fled in all directions. Of the 500,000 human soldiers, only 120,000 had died. The 5 generals were all heavily wounded. Of the 20-plus commanders, 5 had died in battle. While this loss seemed very heavy, compared to the achievement of destroying the million-strong demon army, this was an inconceivable victory. After the battle ended, the hundreds of thousands of human soldiers raised their weapons and cheered at the top of their lungs. Marshal Ji is mighty. The god of death is invincible. With Marshal Ji leading the army, our race will win. Similar cheers and shouts erupted like a mountain torrent, reverberating endlessly between the heavens and the earth, shaking one's eardrums. Chapter 21:12. The soldiers only knew that this battle was a complete victory. Ji Tianxing had personally killed 400,000 demons. His reputation as the Azura would spread throughout the world. Everyone was ecstatic, and they admired Ji Tianxing to the extreme. Only Ji Tianxing knew that he had gained more than that. After this battle, not only had his prestige reached the peak, his strength had also reached the peak after being tempered by killing. He was only a step away from breaking through to the martial sage realm. He could clearly feel that his strength had reached a critical point and he could break through to the martial sage realm at any time. It's a pity that the battle ended so quickly. I wish that a demon sage would appear and fight with me for 3,000 rounds. In that case, I would definitely be able to break through to the martial sage realm in the midst of the battle. Ji Tianxing stood in the sky and looked down at the battlefield as he muttered regretfully. At that moment, Wei Yu, Yi Xianqing, Xing Pingji and the rest flew to his side. The 5 generals were in a sorry state. Their armors were shattered, and their bodies were covered in blood and wounds. Their helmets were broken and their hair was messy. Their faces were covered in blood. Both Ban Yunshan and Tuahai had lost an arm and a leg. Their injuries were even more severe. However, the 5 of them were excited and emotional. General Ji, we have won the battle. Wei Yu cupped his fists towards Ji Tianxing and reported in a sonorous tone, "This general has already sent out 50,000 elite troops to pursue and kill the fleeing devils." Yi Xianqing bowed respectfully and said excitedly, "General Ji, we have used 500,000 soldiers to kill 1,000,000 demons. This is a miracle that only happens once in 100 years. It is a battle achievement that will shock the world." Xing Pingji's tone was also very excited. His eyes were shining as he said, "Among the 1,000,000 devils, 400,000 were killed by Marshal Ji. The name of the Azura is terrifying. After this battle, General Ji's name will spread throughout the world and shock the world." Although everyone was praising him, Ji Tianxing was very calm. He waved his hand and said, "First, report the casualties. Quickly comfort the injured soldiers and deal with the aftermath. Also, all of you are seriously injured. Quickly return to the Celestial Lin Pass to recuperate." Wei Yu, Yi Xianqing and the rest cupped their fists to show that they understood. After an hour, the battlefield was cleaned up. Ji Tianxing and the other generals led 380,000 soldiers back to the Celestial Lin Pass. Ji Tianxing and a few other generals were flying in the sky as the army advanced on the wasteland in a grandiose manner. Yi Xuanqing's face was full of doubts. After hesitating for a long time, he could not help but ask the question in his heart. "General Ji, when we attacked the West Camp, I was worried about the Demon's Camp. The Demon race had a total of 3 military camps. Apart from the Western Camp, there was also the Northern Camp and the Eastern Camp. The 3 camps were only half a day's distance. When we attacked the West Camp, the other 2 camps must have received the news. Why didn't they send reinforcements?" Hearing Yi Xuanqing's question, Wei Yu, Xing Pingji, and the others quickly nodded in agreement. Obviously, they also had the same question. Ji Tianxing looked at them and explained calmly, "Firstly, even if the other 2 camps received the news, they would secretly laugh at us and think that we are seeking our own deaths. How can a mere 500,000 soldiers attack the West Camp with 1,000,000 soldiers? Secondly, after the army set out, I also sent out 40,000 scouts to move around the 2 camps and keep a close watch on them. The generals of the 2 camps are not stupid. They would not dare to act rashly." Hearing his words, Wei Yu, Yi Xianqing and the rest were suddenly enlightened. No wonder. General Ji was already prepared and made arrangements in advance. 40,000 scouts. That's 4 times the usual number of soldiers. All the scouts were sent out and loitering outside the 2 camps. This is to tell them not to act rashly. If they send reinforcements to the West Camp, the Celestial Lin Pass will send a large army to stop them. Haha! I didn't expect the situation to be under General Ji's control. If General Yi did not ask, we would not have thought of this. No wonder there is a rumor in the north that General Ji is the one who understands the demons the best. It seems like it is true. Everyone chatted and discussed along the way. Unknowingly, they had returned to the Celestial Lin Pass. Before the army reached the Celestial Lin Pass, the news of victory had been sent back. When the army entered the Celestial Lin Pass, the pass was filled with cheers and excitement. No one expected that Ji Tianxing would lead the army to attack the West Camp. The most unbelievable thing was that he actually won. The soldiers who returned in triumph were all excited and proud. They enjoyed the glory and praise of the brave. The soldiers who stayed behind to guard the pass could only be envious and jealous. They discussed and asked about the battle. For the entire day, the celestial Lin Pass was not quiet. On the second day, Xie Wudao gathered all the generals and held a commendation ceremony in the square. The soldiers who participated in the battle had made such great contributions. Of course, they would be rewarded handsomely. What's more, these soldiers had followed Ji Tianxing into battle and received double the rewards. Even the soldiers who died or were injured in the battle received double the compensation. After the news spread, the soldiers who participated in the battle became the target of everyone's jealousy. When the 20 generals who stayed behind to guard the pass saw Wei Yu, Yi Xianqing, and the others get promoted and rewarded again after a few days, they were so jealous that their eyes turned red. Especially Xing Pingji, who was the target of their jealousy. Previously, everyone lined up outside Ji Tianxing's door and requested to go to battle. Everyone could not bear the humiliation and left dejectedly. Only Xing Pingji was thick-skinned. He pestered Ji Tianxing and followed the army to battle. And now, he had become one of the 5 meritorious officials. He enjoyed the glory of bravery and was promoted and rewarded in front of everyone. Compared to the limitless glory now, his previous humiliation was not even worth mentioning. The 20 generals regretted it so much that their intestines turned green. They only hated themselves for not being thick-skinned enough. If they could be as shameless as Xing Pingji, they would be the ones receiving commendations, being conferred titles, and receiving double the military merit. In a short 3 days, the news of Ji Tianxing annihilating the million-strong demon army spread throughout the northern battlefield. The people of the Changlong Empire were wild with excitement. They were only waiting for Ji Tianxing to expel the demon army, and they could return to their homeland. The people of the Red Sun Empire were full of anticipation. They only hoped that Ji Tianxing would save them as soon as possible. Only the people of the White Frost Empire were the calmest. After all, they were numb to Ji Tianxing's legendary deeds. Even if someone said that Ji Tianxing poked a hole in the sky, they would accept it calmly. 3 days later, Ji Tianxing set off again. This time, he still brought Wei Yu, Yi Xianqing, and the other 3. He only led an army of 400,000 to attack a fortress. Many generals found Xie Wudao and begged him by all means, wanting to follow Ji Tianxing to battle. But Ji Tianxing said that Wei Yu, Yi Xianqing, and the others were reliable. They were all people he was used to using. He did not want to change to other generals. When he said this, all the generals felt despair and helplessness. They only hated that they were blind and did not follow Ji Tianxing decisively. Chapter 21:13. In half a month, Ji Tianxing went to battle 4 times. Every time, he brought Wei Yu, Yi Xianqing, and the others to battle, and the result was a complete victory. Even though tens of thousands to hundreds of thousands of soldiers would die in every battle. After 4 consecutive battles, more than half of the soldiers under the general's command had been killed. Ji Tianxing, on the other hand, asked Xie Wudao to transfer soldiers from the other generals to replenish the numbers. Anyway, he wanted to ensure that the general's subordinates were always at full strength. The other generals did not have any battles to fight and were idling in the Linxian Pass all day. Now that their soldiers were divided, how could they let it go? They all ran to find Xie Wudao to reason with them. The group of people was in an uproar and were full of resentment. Xie Wudao had a headache. Even if he used the authority of a general, he could not suppress the generals. Helpless, he could only think of a way. He publicly posted a notice in the Linxian Pass to recruit soldiers to join Wei Yu, Yi Xianqing, and the others. After the news was announced, the soldiers guarding the Linxian Pass were in an uproar. In just an hour, tens of thousands of people gathered in the square and enthusiastically responded to Xie Wudao's summons. After all, everyone knew that if they joined Wei Yu, Yi Xianqing, and the others, they would be able to follow Ji Tianxing to attack the strongholds and camps of the demon race and gain merits. Most importantly, Ji Tianxing was victorious in every battle and had never lost. After the victory, the rewards that the soldiers received were also doubled. All along, the soldiers of the Lincian Pass were very envious and jealous. Now that there was an opportunity in front of them, even a fool would know to fight for it. The problem was solved. Wei Yu, Yi Xianqing, and the other subordinates could recover to 100,000 before each battle. The soldiers also joined voluntarily, and the other generals had nothing to say. In the blink of an eye, half a month had passed. Ji Tianxing won 4 battles and captured 2 strongholds, as well as the north and east barracks. At least 1.5 million demons lost their lives in these 4 wars. Ji Tianxing had killed as many as 500,000 devils with his own hand. The demon army was completely routed. Only about 400,000 were left. They retreated from the celestial Overlook Mountain Pass and fled to the north. This time, Ji Tianxing did not have the intention to go into battle. He left the task of chasing after the remaining soldiers to Xie Wudao and the other generals. It was because he had received a communication jade slip last night. It was a black communication jade slip. It came from the north and carried a faint demonic aura. Without a doubt, it was Ji Ku who had sent him a message. For the past 2 years, regardless of whether there was any important information, Ji Ku would send him a message every month. This had already become a promise between the two, regardless of rain or shine. There wasn't much content in the jade slip, only 2 short sentences. However, it made Ji Tianxing frown and ponder for a long time. The demon race's holy city and Beiming Palace have been destroyed. They are currently recuperating. They have lost many battles in the north. The demon army is already thinking of retreating. They might retreat soon. Ji Tianxing sat alone in the secret chamber. He held the communication jade slip in his hand and pondered for a long time. The demon race's holy city was destroyed by Luo Shui's clone. The ancestor demon god and the 2 great demon sages were severely injured by Luo Shui's clone. The demon army's vitality was greatly damaged. They can only recuperate. Now that they are losing in the north, it is natural for them to retreat. However, the demon army still has the upper hand in the Scarlet Sun Empire. After the second demon sage Songyu escaped, he must be in the Scarlet Sun Empire. Why are they in a hurry to retreat? No. I have to hurry to the Scarlet Sun Empire and kill Songyu while he is severely injured. I can't let him retreat to Beiming Mountain. After making up his mind, Ji Tianxing started to prepare. The next morning, he went to the general's palace to look for Xie Wudao. Xie Wudao was in the meeting hall. He had gathered more than 20 generals to discuss the plan to chase after the remaining demons. After Ji Tianxing stepped into the hall, the generals quickly cupped their fists and bowed respectfully. "Greetings, General Ji." "Greetings, General Ji." Ji Tianxing stood in the middle of the hall and nodded to Xie Wudao. He said, "General Xie, I am here today to bid farewell to everyone." Hearing this, Xie Wudao stood up with a bang. His face was full of shock. The generals in the hall were also stunned for a moment. Soon after, anxious, surprised, and reluctant expressions appeared on their faces. Xie Wudao looked at Ji Tianxing with a burning gaze and asked, "Young Master Ji, why are you in such a hurry to leave? You have only been in the Immortal Pass for 20 days. You have been leading the army and bathing in blood. You have not had a good rest. Ban Shuai and the generals have not treated you well. They did not even have the chance to express their gratitude." Ji Tianxing waved his hand and smiled. "All good things must come to an end. My mission has been completed. It is time to leave. Now that the demon army outside the Immortal Pass has been defeated and fled, it is a waste of time for me to stay. The people of the Scarlet Sun Empire are in danger. They are waiting for me to help them. I cannot delay." Xie Wudao nodded. "That's right. The crisis in the Scarlet Sun Empire is not over yet. There is still the Heavenly Pass 100,000 miles away waiting for you. There were 2 main battlefields in the Chonglong Empire. One was the Immortal Pass and the other was the Heavenly Pass. Ji Tianxing's original plan was to solve the crisis in the Immortal Pass first, then help the Heavenly Pass. But now, he changed his mind. No, General Xie, please tell the Changlong Saint Emperor that I will not be going to the Heavenly Pass. I have something important to do. I must go to the Scarlet Sun Empire as soon as possible. Ah! Xie Wudao was stunned. He asked in confusion, but there are still 3 million demon soldiers outside the Heavenly Pass. Ji Tianxing said with certainty, the crisis in the Immortal Pass has been solved. After you have cleared the remaining demons, you can go to the Heavenly Pass. At that time, your 5 million soldiers will join forces. Do you think you can't deal with 3 million demons? Moreover, there are internal problems in the demon race. Now, the people are in chaos. They will withdraw soon. Hearing this, Xie Wudao was relieved. He nodded and said, I see. I understand. Then, Xie Wudao stopped the meeting and led the generals to send Ji Tianxing off. He personally sent Ji Tianxing out of the meeting hall and to the square outside the hall. Young Master Ji, I won't say any more words of thanks. I will remember your kindness. If you need this old man's help in the future, just send me a message as soon as possible. This old man will definitely not refuse. Xie Wudao bowed to Ji Tianxing and said secretly, Young Master Ji, regarding the Pillar of Heaven's Mountains, please believe that I will always be a disciple of the Pillar of Heaven's Mountains. As long as the Pillar of Heaven's Mountains needs me, I will do my best to help you. Ji Tianxing looked at him deeply and nodded silently. Then Wei Yu, Yi Xianqing, Ban Yunshan, Tua Hai and Xing Pingji walked in front of him and bowed to him respectfully. General Ji, it is this general's honor to meet you and fight alongside you in this life. General Ji, have a safe journey. I will always remember your kindness. If General Ji has any orders in the future, I will do my best. We are grateful that we decided to follow General Ji. But we are even more grateful to General Ji for giving us everything we have today. Without General Ji's support, we would not be where we are today. General Ji, no matter where you are, if you need anything in the future, just say the word and we will do our best. The 5 generals were also reluctant to let Ji Tianxing leave, but they knew that it was inevitable. They could only reveal the truest thoughts in their hearts at the moment of parting. Chapter 21:14. After leaving the Celestial Overlook Pass, Ji Tianxing flew into the sky and sped towards the east. Whether it was in the Empire of White Frost or the Celestial Overlook Pass, he was just a passerby. Whether it was Lu Baishuang's admiration and secret feelings, or the respect and loyalty of Wei Yu and the others, they were all worldly possessions to him. If an ordinary genius or powerhouse could reach such a level, they would already be successful and proud. But to Ji Tianxing, all of this would become a thing of the past. His future would not be limited to this world. Half a day later, Ji Tianxing flew over the Heavenly Mystery Pass. Even though the outside of the Heavenly Mystery Pass was filled with smoke and the war was in full swing. But he had no intention of stopping and continued to fly towards the Scarlet Sun Empire. Just as he said, the danger of the Celestial Overlook Pass had been resolved, and there would be more than 2 million soldiers free. Together with the 3 million soldiers guarding the Heavenly Mystery Pass, how could the 5 million soldiers not defeat the 3 million demons? He did not need to worry about this at all. What he was most concerned about now was to rush to the Scarlet Sun Empire and kill the heavily injured demon Sage Songyu. As long as he killed demon Sage Songyu, the ancestor Fiend Celestial would have no helpers for the next 10 years. Even if the North Underworld Mountain nurtured a new demon sage, it would not be a threat. The journey was boring and lonely, but Ji Tianxing was already used to it. Lan Kuan, old ancestor Sanju, and the Jinshan King were all cultivating in the sword world. The previous series of battles had also benefited them greatly. Their combat experience and strength had been greatly improved. Soon, 10 days passed. Ji Tianxing entered the Scarlet Sun Empire and arrived at the Falling Moon mountain range. This vast and majestic mountain range was the barrier between the North Underworld Mountain and the Scarlet Sun Empire. Fortunately, this barrier had not been broken since the demons invaded the Luo Shui divine nation. But in these 2 years, no less than 10 million human soldiers had died in the Falling Moon mountain range. The Falling Star Valley was the current front line. The mountain range and land in this area had long been razed to ruins and had been overturned several times. The soil on the ground had also been dyed dark red by blood. When Ji Tianxing left the Celestial Face Pass, the Changlong Saint Emperor received the news and immediately sent a message to the Scarlet Sun Empire. Therefore, when Ji Tianxing arrived at the Starfall Valley, the Scarlet Sun Empire was already prepared to welcome him. The soldiers of the Scarlet Sun Empire had been fighting a bloody battle for more than a year, but they were still unable to defeat the Devil Race's army. Instead, the situation was getting more and more dangerous. Ever since they knew that Ji Tianxing had participated in the war and won every battle, defeating the demon army, the soldiers and people of the Qiyang Empire saw him as their savior. For many days and nights, the citizens of the Scarlet Sun Empire had been waiting for Ji Tianxing to save them from the sea of war. Now, his savior had finally arrived. When the sun was setting, Ji Tianxing arrived at the mountain pass of the Starfall Valley. This valley was in the shape of a gourd. The entrance was narrow, but the inside was very spacious. It had a radius of 200 to 300 miles. More than 2 million human soldiers were stationed in the valley. Rows upon rows of houses and palaces formed a huge military camp. They were densely packed in the valley. At the entrance of the valley, there were more than 10,000 soldiers. They formed a grand guard of honor to welcome Ji Tianxing's arrival. The soldiers were in high spirit. They blew the loud bugle horn and played the inspiring drum music. They danced majestically with spears and halberds. Everyone's expression was filled with excitement, and joy. It was as if they were welcoming their savior and worshipping the 9 heavens above. Ji Tianxing had always been indifferent to fame and fortune. He did not care about these empty titles. However, when he saw the scene at the entrance of the Starfall Valley, there were some ripples in his heart. He felt a little proud. In the valley, there were more than 10,000 soldiers waiting in formation. They were all looking at him with sparkling eyes and full of excitement. At a glance, there were all pitch-black armors, cold swords, spears, and halberds. They were all emitting a majestic aura. When Ji Tianxing stepped into the Starfall Valley, the soldiers cheered loudly. "Welcome to the Starfall Valley, General Ji." The cheers of 100,000 people converged into a huge sound wave. It was more terrifying than a tsunami and more shocking than thunder. Ji Tianxing stepped into the valley with majestic step. He was greeted by an old man in a purple robe. He led more than 20 golden-armored generals and welcomed him with a smile. The crowd stood in front of him. The purple-robed old man cupped his hands and bowed. He smiled and said, "This old man is Du Tringchong. I am the general of the Starfall Valley. Welcome, General Ji." Following that, more than 20 golden-armored generals also bowed respectfully. They said in a sonorous voice, "Welcome, General Ji." Seeing this scene, Ji Tianxing was a little stunned. He was silent and did not say anything. In the past few months, he had been thinking about how to fight, how to expel the demon army, and how to protect the Luo Shui divine nation. He had never thought that after his consecutive victories, the name of the killing god would spread and cause such a huge commotion in the Luo Shui divine nation. Today, he finally saw it for himself. The more than 2 million soldiers in the Starfall Valley, whether it was General Du Tringchong or the many soldiers, all respected him and warmly welcomed him. This was enough to prove that his position in the hearts of the people was higher than the Saint Emperor of a nation. He was like a god. He had never thought of becoming famous, of being praised by the people of the world, of being worshipped by millions of people. But now, he had unintentionally done it. and this result was mainly caused by the invasion of the demon army. To Ji Tianxing, this was a supreme honor and trust, but also a great pressure and responsibility. He became more and more determined to expel the demon army no matter what, and even destroy the entire North Underworld mountain. He hoped that in this world, the demon race would no longer cause chaos and bring disaster to the world. After a moment, Ji Tianxing nodded to the crowd. He raised his hand and said, "General Du, generals, please rise." Du Chengchang and the other generals stood up. Ji Tianxing smiled and said in a playful tone, "Just now, I heard General Du and the other generals call me General Ji?" Du Chengchang stroked his white beard and said with a smile, "General Ji, since you joined the war, you first helped the White Frost Empire expel the demon army, and then you helped the Changlong Empire resolve a crisis. No matter where you go, you hold the position of Deputy General. You have won every battle and have never lost. The number of demon race that died under your sword is at least over 1 million. Your name of killing god has long been spread throughout the world, respected and praised by the martial artists of my race. But we are all people in the military, so it is most appropriate to call you General Ji. Moreover, since you have come to the Starfall Valley, the position of Deputy General is yours. This old man and the 2 million soldiers are still looking forward to you taking charge of the situation, leading everyone to expel the demon race, and to victory." Du Chengchang was a white-haired old man who had lived for nearly 2,000 years. He was a martial arts master with great prestige in the Scarlet Sun Empire. However, even a veteran martial sage like him was extremely respectful and courteous towards Ji Tianxing. He even addressed him with the word "Sir." Chapter 21:15. Ji Tianxing, Du Chengchang, and the others exchanged greetings at the entrance of the valley for a while. Subsequently, Du Chengchang introduced more than 20 golden-armored generals to Ji Tianxing. Most of these people were the elite generals of the Scarlet Sun Empire. They were all battle-hardened generals. Everyone was familiar with Ji Tianxing's legendary deeds. They respected and worshipped him very much, treating him as their idol. Even the eyes that looked at him were fiery and blazing, flickering with a bright light. Half an hour later, everyone escorted Ji Tianxing back to the Starfall Valley and entered the commander's palace. In the spacious and bright conference hall, there was a huge sand table in the middle. Normally, Du Chengchang would gather all the generals here to discuss matters. After everyone entered the hall, Du Chengchang pointed to the huge sand table and said to Ji Tianxing, "Commander Ji, this old man will immediately announce the news of your arrival and appoint you as the deputy commander. This is the defensive layout of the Starfall Valley and the Demon Army. The sand table marks the defensive situation of our army and the Demon Army in detail. You can study it. In addition, this old man has already prepared the information regarding the battle situation and the demon generals. After this old man arranges your residence, I will immediately send someone to deliver the jade slip to you so that you can understand the situation as soon as possible." Ji Tianxing nodded and said, "Commander Du is very considerate. Many thanks." Du Chengchang quickly waved his hand and said in a sincere tone, "Commander Ji is too polite. This old man dares not accept it. For you to come to the Starfall Valley to help, it is already our blessing and fortune." Ji Tianxing saw that he was about to say a lot of words of thanks again, so he quickly interrupted him. "All right, time is tight and the mission is important. Let's not talk about pleasantries. Commander Du, arrange my residence first. I also need some time to understand the situation in the Starfall Valley." "All right. Then it's settled." Du Chengchang liked his straightforwardness the most. He said happily, "This old man will arrange it for you immediately." Before Ji Tianxing came, he was very familiar with Ji Tianxing's legendary deeds. He had been very nervous, thinking about how to receive Ji Tianxing. After all, such godlike genius experts would always have unimaginable hobbies and strange temperaments. Du Chengchang was afraid that his negligence or lack of care would anger Ji Tianxing. Now, seeing that Ji Tianxing was very amiable and did not make things difficult for him or put on airs, he finally felt relieved. Within a short span of 100 breaths, Du Chengchang had arranged a place for Ji Tianxing to stay. His residence was within the Commander-in-Chief's palace. However, it was in the quietest and most magnificent palace at the back, and it was equipped with dozens of guards and young and beautiful maids. Du Chengchang was a shrewd old man, and he considered things very thoroughly. The guards were young and handsome, and the maids were beautiful and charming. They were all intelligent and quick-witted, ready to offer themselves at any time. Du Chengchang did this to please Ji Tianxing. Ji Tianxing saw all of this and felt a chill in his heart, and couldn't help muttering to himself, "This old thing Du Chengchang, he's becoming more and more cautious the longer he lives. I don't know what kind of dirty ideas he has in his head. Arranging more than 30 young and beautiful maids for me is one thing, but he even arranged more than 30 little white faces for me? What's going on? Do I look like that kind of person?" After muttering to himself, he called out to his entourage in a dignified tone, a strange expression on his face as he scolded, "The maids stay and the young guards withdraw." The attendant that Du Chengchang had arranged for Yang Kai was a beautiful woman who looked to be about 30 years old. Her name was Guanji, and she was extremely charming. This woman was tall and sexy, with a pair of seductive eyes, and her entire body exuded an enchanting aura. From an 80-year-old man to an 8-year-old boy, it was difficult for anyone to refuse her gentle service. If a beautiful young girl was like a green plum, then she was like a ripe peach. She was wearing a fiery red dress. After respectfully listening to his orders, she hurriedly bowed and saluted. Since Marshal Ji has given the order, Guanji will naturally comply. Saying so, she walked to the door of the study and ordered all the male guards to withdraw. After passing on the order, she gracefully walked over to Ji Tianxing and said in a soft voice, "Marshal Ji must be tired after such a long journey. Guanji has already ordered the maids to prepare a hot spring for Marshal Ji to wash your body and relax your mind." Ji Tianxing was sitting in front of his desk, flipping through jade slips and books to understand the situation in Falling Star Valley. Suddenly hearing Guanji's words, he felt a little strange and raised his head to look at her. As soon as he looked up, he met Guanji's watery red phoenix eyes, and he felt as if he had fallen into a hot spring, like a spring breeze, warm and comfortable. Even the depths of his soul faintly felt hot and throbbing. If his mind wasn't firm enough, he would have immediately turned into a ferocious wolf and pressed Guanji onto the desk, doing something indescribable, but Ji Tianxing's soul was extremely firm, and in an instant, he suppressed his evil thoughts and calmed his soul down. He coldly glanced at Guanji and said in a low voice, "You are not a human, but a descendant of the Mei-Nu tribe that went extinct 1,000 years ago. You are born with the power to captivate souls and confuse people's hearts. Almost no man can escape your temptation. Moreover, you cultivate the Mei-Nu soul enchanting art, so when you cultivate with a martial Tao master, you can absorb their strength." Hearing his words, Guanji's body immediately shook, as if she had been struck by lightning. The gentle flirtatious look in her eyes immediately disappeared, and her blushing and shy face turned a little pale. She stared at Ji Tianxing in disbelief, unable to believe that Ji Tianxing had seen through her with a single glance. In front of Ji Tianxing, all her disguises had been exposed, as if she was standing naked in a world of ice and snow. She felt fear from the bottom of her heart and didn't dare look into Ji Tianxing's eyes. At this time, Ji Tianxing said in an indifferent tone, "You were born with a seductive art and are used to using your beauty to serve others, but Ben Shuai has always disdained such things and disdained to comment. Go back and tell Du Chengchang that everyone is working for the Luo River Divine Kingdom, so he doesn't need to be so cautious. Ben Shuai will naturally do his best. If he dares to act smart again, don't blame Ben Shuai for holding him accountable." Guanji immediately recovered and knelt to the ground in fear and trepidation, sobbing as she said, "Commander Ji, please calm down. This lowly concubine has offended you. This lowly concubine deserves 10,000 deaths. But Commander Du went to great lengths to invite this lowly concubine to serve you. This lowly concubine is sincere and kind. I hope Commander Ji won't blame me. This lowly concubine promises to never offend you again in the future. I hope Commander Ji will be magnanimous and allow this lowly concubine to continue serving you." Ji Tianxing didn't raise his head and continued reading, his tone calm as he said, "Since this is your first offense, and you were instructed by Du Tringchong, Ben Shuai will spare you this time. If you want to stay by Ben Shuai's side and serve him, then put away your racial talent and seductive arts, otherwise you will only be rejected by Ben Shuai." When Guanji saw him relent, she immediately breathed a sigh of relief and kowtowed, as if a heavy burden had been lifted from her shoulders. Chapter 21:16. After bowing and apologizing, Guanji really restrained herself a lot. The soul-sucking power she exuded, as well as the charm that originated from her soul, all disappeared without a trace. When she turned and left the study, she looked just like an ordinary woman. She was just more beautiful and charming than an ordinary woman. When her figure disappeared at the door of the study, Ji Tianxing raised his head and looked at her with a deep gaze. Then, a black light flashed in his palm and the sword of Burial of Heaven appeared. "Burial of Heaven, I have something to ask of you." He spoke to Buried Heaven, who was in the sword, through voice transmission. The next moment, Burial of Heaven was awakened and responded in a low voice, "What's the matter?" Ji Tianxing said calmly, "I don't know what that old man Du Tringchong is thinking, but he actually sent a descendant of the Cha-Nu tribe to serve me." Suddenly hearing this sentence, Burial of Heaven was stunned for a moment and said in a stunned tone, "1,000 years have passed, but there are still descendants of the Cha-Nu tribe active in the world? In this day and age, there are very few people who know the details of the Cha-Nu tribe, right?" "Yes." Ji Tianxing nodded and said, 1,000 years ago, the Cha-Nu tribe was on the verge of extinction and was so weak that they could only rely on the great empires and martial Dao forces. This tribe, which is both good and evil, can not only support the empires, but also bring disaster to the world, causing chaos among the various races and making the people unable to make a living. Guanji is most likely attached to the imperial family of the Scarlet Sun Empire. Du Tringchong is probably old and muddle-headed, so he made this decision because of her. She just left, so follow her secretly and see if she has any problems. Burial of Heaven pondered for a moment before agreeing. "In the past, there were some grievances between you and the Cha-Nu tribe. Although it was just a trivial matter to you, you may not take it to heart. But for the Cha-Nu tribe, you destroyed their plan to attach themselves to the vast divine empire, causing them to be exiled and hated by everyone. Moreover, you even injured Empress Tantai of the Cha-Nu tribe and almost crippled her seduction technique. Now that the descendant of the Cha-Nu tribe is entangled with you, it seems that this is karma, alas." Ji Tianxing rolled his eyes and said snappily, "Why do I feel like you're gloating? Back then, Empress Tantai of the Cha-Nu tribe tried to seduce me and make me her servant. She even tried to bring chaos to the divine court of the divine kingdom of Taihao. How could I forgive her?" Burial of Heaven said in a strange tone, "Empress Tantai is a peerless beauty in the human world, and she was born with the ability to charm. In the words of you men, she is a beauty of the highest quality that only appears once in 10,000 years. She is the dream partner of millions of heroes. I'm offering myself as your pillow because I want to be together with you and cling onto the pillar of Heaven's mountain. But you don't understand the situation at all. You picked her up from the bed and threw her onto the square. What kind of humiliation is this? The other party was infuriated, so of course he would attack you. Yet you heavily injured her and almost crippled her seduction technique. Tell me, aren't you recklessly wasting God's gift? After that incident, I don't know how many men scolded you behind your back and envied you. Listening to Burial of Heaven talk about the past thousands of years ago, Ji Tianxing could only smile bitterly. The world knew my temperament back then. I used the sword as my companion, always alone. I only fell in love once in my life, but it didn't end well. I always despised women like Empress Tantai, so how could I have sex with her? Wouldn't it ruin the name of the Kenshin and make the world laugh at me? Burial of Heaven was silent for a moment, then stopped talking about this topic and said in a low voice, "Your enmity with the Cha-Nu tribe hasn't been eliminated. If your identity is leaked, it's hard to guarantee that the Cha-Nu tribe won't retaliate. To be on the safe side, I'd better go and observe Guanji in person. I hope she just stumbled upon you by accident and didn't deliberately approach you." Ji Tianxing nodded slightly. The Cha-Nu tribe has already died out, and now only a few scattered descendants exist in the world. I hope they don't make a mistake. If they really do harm to me, the entire Cha-Nu tribe will become history. Burial of Heaven continued. Although I've recovered half of my strength and the sword spirit can leave the sword body, it can only move within a radius of 3,000 miles. I can follow Guanji and secretly observe her movements without being discovered by her. But if she leaves the range of 3,000 miles, I can't do anything. In short, you have to be careful and be careful. Ji Tianxing nodded to express his understanding. Burial of Heaven didn't say anything more and flew out of the sword body, turning into a wisp of invisible black qi and disappeared into the night sky. Ji Tianxing put away Burial of Heaven and continued to read the books and jade slips to understand the situation in the Starfall Valley. Unknowingly, a whole night passed. Ji Tianxing had been in the study, reading a mountain of information and jade slips without sleeping. Burial of Heaven was hidden in the night sky, quietly observing Guanji. To its surprise, Guanji had been in her residence in the backyard of the general's palace, meditating and cultivating without going out. She didn't do anything out of the ordinary. After dawn, she got up and washed up, then served Ji Tianxing according to the rules. Burial of Heaven secretly observed her for a whole day, but found nothing unusual, so it flew back to Burial of Heaven and reported the situation to Ji Tianxing. When Ji Tianxing heard the news, he didn't say anything and just muttered, "I hope I'm just being paranoid." After that, he devoted himself to the war, planning how to attack the demon camp. Late the next night, the general's palace was dimly lit and quiet. Guanji had been resting in her room without any unusual movements. It wasn't until the middle of the night that she quietly got up and took out a black fox mask. When she put on the mask, her whole body became invisible, completely disappearing into the darkness. Then, she quietly flew out of the general's palace, crossed the dark night sky, and flew out of Falling Star Valley. She didn't disturb anyone, and after leaving Falling Star Valley, she flew east. After an entire hour, she flew for thousands of miles before landing on a barren mountain. After landing on the top of the mountain, she cautiously observed her surroundings, and after making sure no one was following her, she sneaked into the mountain. Inside the mountain, there was a man-made cave about 10 feet in radius. The walls were inlaid with pearls and gems, and the floor was covered with white jade. Deep in the cave, there was a wide jade bed covered with luxurious fox and moon fox furs. A beautiful woman with an explosive figure and a curvaceous figure was currently resting on a jade bed with her eyes closed. This woman wore a 10-foot-long golden dress and a 2-foot-tall luxurious crown on her head, which was studded with rare gems. Her beautiful face was soul-stirring, like a young girl in her 20s. But the seductive aura she exuded was more mature and charming than any other woman. Guanji was already a flirtatious beauty, but compared to this woman, she paled in comparison. Both were charming and moving, but this woman was completely natural, without a trace. Chapter 21:17. When Guanji entered the cave, the woman in the golden dress was resting with her eyes closed. Her beautiful face, seductive aura, and languid posture made it impossible for anyone to extricate themselves from it. Guanji arrived in front of the jade bed and respectfully knelt on the ground, her palms flat as she saluted. "Greetings, Your Majesty." Without a doubt, the beautiful woman lying on the jade bed was the queen of the Chanu tribe. Hearing Guanji's voice, she didn't open her eyes and continued to lie on her side, revealing her beautiful curves. "Guanji, what's the result?" She gently opened her cherry lips and asked in a soft voice. This kind of voice and emphasis had a natural charm to it. No matter who heard it, they wouldn't feel disgusted. Guanji respectfully bowed her head and answered truthfully, "Reporting to Your Majesty, as the rumors said before, Ji Tianxing really did come to Falling Star Valley 2 days ago." Her Majesty instructed Guanji to keep everything confidential and not report to him face to face unless there is something important. Therefore, in order not to arouse his suspicion, Guanji endured for 2 days before reporting. The queen slowly turned over, still lying on her side, her right hand supporting her cheek as she looked deeply at Guanji and asked, "Du Chengchang has arranged for you to be Ji Tianxing's personal maid. You should have had a lot of contact with him these past 2 days. Have you ever had any intimate moments with him?" For some reason, the queen's tone was a bit strange and her eyes were quite cold, with a trace of hatred hidden deep within them. Guanji still had her head lowered so she couldn't see the queen's expression. She gently shook her head and said regretfully, "Reporting to Your Majesty, it didn't happen. This subordinate tried to use my charm technique to seduce him, but he saw through this subordinate's identity and origin at a glance and sternly refused. He also said that he despised my tribe's charm technique the most." Hearing Guanji's answer, the Empress's eyes flashed with relief. The corners of her mouth rose slightly, forming a playful smile as she said in a low voice, "So it really is him." Guanji was stunned for a moment, then asked in disbelief, "Your Majesty, you mean Ji Tianxing is the Kenshin from 1,000 years ago?" The Empress nodded slightly and said angrily, "There was news from the celestial face pass that Xie Wudao turned pale with fright when he saw Ji Tianxing. He called out for his teacher and almost knelt down to greet him." This news had long been spread, causing endless discussions in the martial arts world. Before this, I didn't dare to confirm whether the news was true. After all, that bastard had been dead for 1,000 years. But now that I've heard what you've said, I'm completely certain that he's Kenshin. Guanji was silent for a moment, then nodded. This subordinate has carefully thought about it and feels that it should be him. After all, Ji Tianxing is too young. It's impossible for him to know about the existence of my clan, let alone meet our descendants. But when he saw this subordinate, he immediately recognized this subordinate as a member of the Chanu tribe, and even mentioned this subordinate's bewitching technique. The Empress sneered and said, "That's right. My tribe's bewitching technique and soul-sucking power are unparalleled in the world. Not to mention men, even the monster race, demon race, or other races, as long as they are male, no one can resist it. But he rejected you without any hesitation, and even disdained my tribe's bewitching technique. Only he would be so unromantic, like a dead tree. Guanji, tell me, how can there be a cat in this world that doesn't steal fish? How can there be a man who isn't lustful?" Guanji thought seriously for a moment, then shook her head. The Empress sneered and said in a resentful tone, "But he's a freak, so self-disciplined that it makes one's hair stand on end. Sometimes this Empress even thinks that he doesn't like women, but men?" Guanji shook her head again. Du Chengchang also arranged many young male guards for him. Some were handsome, some were masculine, and some were feminine. Could be said that they all had their own characteristics. But when he saw those male guards, he flew into a rage and ordered his subordinates to withdraw the guards. He also said that if Du Chengchang acted on his own again, he would punish him. The Empress suddenly frowned and whispered angrily, "Such a ruthless person should have died 1,000 years ago. Why did he appear again? The heavens are simply blind." Guanji was silent for a while, not knowing how to respond. The Empress gradually suppressed her anger and resentment and waved her hand, since Ji Tianqing has seen through your identity, it is very likely that he will suspect you. You shouldn't take too long to avoid being discovered by him. Immediately go to Falling Star Valley. If he has any news or movements, you don't need to report it in person, just send a message in secret. Guanji cupped his hands in obeisance. Your Majesty, please rest assured. From Ji Tianqing's previous actions, it is clear that he is carrying a heavy responsibility and only wants to expel the demon race army as soon as possible. He has already been in Falling Star Valley for 2 days, and in 2 or 3 days at most, he will definitely lead the army to battle. At that time, Your Majesty will have the opportunity to act. The Empress suddenly sneered and said in a joking tone, Yes, this Empress can't wait. This Empress really wants to see what kind of expression he will have when he sees this Empress again. The humiliation he inflicted on this Empress made this Empress a laughingstock for 300 or 400 years. How can this Empress forget this hatred? This time, this Empress will pay him back double and wash away the shame. This Empress will make him kneel at my feet and lick my toes. Ha 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 ha. At the end of her speech, the Empress raised her head and laughed proudly, her body trembling and rippling. Guanji didn't stay any longer and bowed to her. May Your Majesty's wish be fulfilled. This subordinate will take his leave. Then, she turned and left the cave, quickly disappearing into the night. The cave returned to silence. Empress Tantai lay on the bed with her eyes closed and whispered to herself. Everyone knows that the second demon Saint Song Yu is overseeing the battlefield of Qi-Yang Empire. Almost everyone thinks that Song Yu is in the demon race camp outside Heavenly Wolf Pass. But this Empress is very clear that Song Yu is not there at all, but in the camp outside Falling Star Valley. Ji Tianqing is so eager for quick success. Once he goes to battle, he will encounter Song Yu. No matter how much of a genius he is definitely not Song Yu's opponent, and he will definitely return in defeat. He will be seriously injured and retreat in defeat, and his invincible legend will come to an end. At that time, this Empress will humiliate him. I really want to see what kind of expression he will have when the time comes. About half an hour later, Guanji quietly returned to Falling Star Valley without attracting anyone's attention. Seeing that everything in the commander's palace was as usual and there was nothing unusual, she rested at ease. Early the next morning, Ji Tianqing gathered more than 20 generals and discussed matters in the study. Chapter 21:18. After 2 hours of interaction, Ji Tianqing had a good understanding of their natures. Then, he called out the names of the 6 generals and asked them to stay. The other 20 generals were all dismissed and left the study. When only Ji Tianqing and the 6 generals were left in the study, he said, The 6 of you are all generals that can catch Ben Shuai's eye. Tonight, Ben Shuai will be leading the army to battle. As for where he will be attacking, it must be kept a secret for now. This is a good opportunity for you to make a name for yourselves. I hope you will cherish it. The 6 generals were very familiar with his legendary deeds. When they heard that they were going to battle tonight, they were immediately excited and overjoyed. That's great. We will be able to follow Marshal Ji to battle tonight. Many thanks for Marshal Ji's support and for giving us the chance to prove ourselves. Marshal Ji, may this general be so bold as to ask, if we win the battle, will the military merit reward be doubled? Hey, you even know this? Ji Tianqing glanced at the generals, both annoyed and amused. The 6 generals didn't feel awkward and quickly nodded in agreement. Of course. We are all familiar with Marshal Ji's legendary deeds and experiences. To tell you the truth, before Marshal Ji came to Starfall Valley, this general had already regarded Marshal Ji as his idol. Marshal Ji, not only are your martial prowess outstanding and your schemes unparalleled, you are also very generous to your subordinates. This is something that everyone knows. This general is not flattering you, but Marshal Ji's martial prowess, talent, schemes, and breadth of mind are enough to conquer all the generals and soldiers in the world. You are a peerless martial talent that only appears once in 1,000 years. To be able to fight for you on the battlefield in this lifetime is a blessing that we have cultivated for 3 lifetimes. Ji Tianqing frowned slightly and said in a serious tone, Since you know Ben Shuai so well, you should know that Ben Shuai has never liked to be flattered, much less cared about false reputation. Don't flatter Ben Shuai and don't flatter him. If you have the energy, you might as well use it on the battlefield. The 6 generals hurriedly restrained their smiles and put on a solemn expression. They cupped their hands and said in a sonorous tone, This general will follow Marshal Ji's instructions. Then, the general with the handlebar mustache asked carefully, General Ji, about the military merits and rewards. Ji Tianqing waved his hand and said decisively, Same old rules, double. The 6 generals were greatly relieved. Their faces were filled with pleasant surprise as they bowed in unison. Long live General Ji! General Ji is wise. Great Marshal Ji! On behalf of the 100,000 soldiers under my command, this general thanks General Ji for your generosity. With Marshal Ji's words, this general and the 100,000 warriors under my command will definitely sacrifice our lives for him. Ji Tianqing nodded and said in a dignified tone, All right, go back and prepare for war. Tonight we will gather outside the Valley of Fallen Stars. As you command. The 6 generals cupped their fists and replied in unison. After that, they left the study room full of ambition and went back to reorganize their troops with glowing faces. The study room fell into silence. Ji Tianqing closed his eyes and rubbed his eyebrows, thinking about tonight's battle plan. At this time, soft footsteps sounded and a refreshing woman's fragrance wafted into his nose. Ji Tianqing opened his eyes and saw Guan Ji in a white dress, carrying a jade plate as she gracefully walked into the study room. She came to Ji Tianqing's side and took out a pot of spirit tea and 2 plates of spirit fruit from the jade plate and placed them in front of Ji Tianqing. General Ji, you didn't sleep all night because of the battle, so you must be tired. This lowly concubine has prepared some calming tea and fruits for you, please enjoy them. Guan Ji Qiao smiled as she looked at Ji Tianqing, her eyes sparkling like autumn water, causing one's heart to itch. At this moment, she was wearing a long, moon-white dress that accentuated her perfect figure. However, she had put away her innate charm and seductive power, so she didn't appear wanton or charming at all. Instead, her temperament was gentle and virtuous. Ji Tianqing glanced at her but didn't show the slightest appreciation. Instead, he frowned and said in a displeased tone, Who told you to wear this white dress? Take it off. Guan Ji froze for a moment and immediately lowered her head, her pretty face and white neck blushing. General Ji, is this the place? Her voice was as small as a mosquito's and her posture was shy and timid. Obviously, she had misunderstood. Ji Tianqing frowned again and said in a dignified tone, What nonsense are you thinking? Ben Shuai's meaning is that you go back and change your clothes, otherwise don't appear in front of Ben Shuai again. Guan Ji was stunned, showing a bewildered expression on his face. Ji Tianqing saw her stupidity and said in a deep voice, Such an elegant and simple white dress, especially with tassels and cloud patterns, only she is worthy of wearing it. A prostitute like you actually imitating an otherworldly fairy is really dirty to Ben Shuai's eyes. Guan Ji suddenly realized that Ji Tianqing was angry because of this. The she he spoke of was definitely his most beloved woman. Thinking of this, Guan Ji suddenly felt wronged and wanted to cry. After all, Ji Tianqing had called her a prostitute in front of her face and looked down on her so much. It was really too hurtful. But she didn't dare show the slightest dissatisfaction. She could only hold back her tears and bow. General Ji, please calm your anger. This lowly concubine has offended you. This lowly concubine will go change her clothes. Finished speaking, she bowed and left the study. Ji Tianqing was too lazy to look at her. He didn't even touch the spirit tea and spirit fruit on the table. Instead, he turned around and entered the secret room to make charms. However, after Guanji left the study, her expression quickly changed. A moment ago, she was teary-eyed and pitiful. The next moment, she returned to normal. Her tears disappeared and a sneer appeared in the depths of her eyes. Ha ha ha, so it's not that you don't like women, nor do you like men. You already have someone in your heart. Humph. The cold and emotionless Kenshin of the past actually has a sweetheart now. How ridiculous! As this thought flashed through Guanji's mind, the corners of her mouth hooked up into a contemptuous sneer. The day passed quickly. The news that Ji Tianxing was going to lead the army to battle spread throughout Starfall Valley. The 6 generals chosen by him became the object of envy of all the other generals. Everyone knew that these fellows were following the invincible General Ji and would soon achieve great achievements, be promoted, and become famous all over the world. They didn't dare to do anything, but they received General Ji's favor and support. It was simply like smoke rising from their ancestors' graves. The 600,000 elite soldiers under the command of the 6 generals were also envied by the other soldiers. For a time, the atmosphere in Starfall Valley was lively as countless people were talking about this matter. Everyone was waiting with bated breath, waiting to see Ji Tianxing lead his troops into battle and create another glorious battle record. Late at night, the sky was dark as ink without the slightest starlight. Outside Starfall Valley, an army of 600,000 had gathered, arranged in 6 formations, looking mighty and majestic. Every soldier's face was full of ambition and a strong fighting spirit exuded from their bodies. Chapter 21:19. Ji Tianxing stood in the night sky, looking towards the north in silence. The 6 generals rushed to his side one after another and stood respectfully behind him. Reporting to Marshal Ji, Shi Qingshan's troops have finished their preparations and are awaiting your orders. Reporting to Marshal Ji, Yun Heng's troops have finished their preparations and are ready to set out at any time. Marshal Ji, Jian Fei Yang's troops. The 6 generals reported the military situation one by one, indicating that they were ready to set out. Ji Tianxing nodded lightly and was about to wave his hand to give an order. At that moment, Du Chengchong led more than a dozen generals and flew over from the night sky. When he arrived, Du Chengchong cupped his fists towards Ji Tianxing and asked with a concerned expression, "Marshal Ji, although this old man is old, he is still a hot-blooded man. Now that Marshal Ji is going to set out, this old man is also willing to follow Marshal Ji to the battlefield and experience Marshal Ji's demeanor and might." Ji Tianxing glanced at him and cupped his fists. "Marshal Du, you stay in Falling Star Valley, lest our nest be destroyed by the demon race. In addition, you must send out all the scouts to roam around the 2 demon race camp. Be sure to maintain your deterrence. At the same time, you must mobilize an army of 500,000 and be ready to reinforce us at any time, or block the demon race's reinforcements." Du Chengchong listened carefully and nodded repeatedly. "Marshal Ji, please rest assured, these are all necessary preparations. This old man is well aware of them. This old man congratulates Marshal Ji for achieving victory and creating more glory. This old man will prepare a celebratory feast in the Marshal's palace and await Marshal Ji's triumphant return." Ji Tianxing nodded and waved his hand to the 6 generals. All troops set out. Soon after, the 600,000-strong army set out. Everyone rushed through the mountain range, leaving behind muffled rumbling sounds and billowing clouds of dust, quickly disappearing into the night. Du Chengchong and the generals stood in the night sky for a long time before turning around and returning to the valley. At the same time, in a secret room deep in the marshal's palace, Guanji took out a communication jade slip with a solemn expression and quietly sent it out. The 6 generals followed Ji Tianxing through the night sky. They flew for over 10,000 miles, but they still didn't know the target of their attack. Finally, Shi Qingshan couldn't hold back his doubts and asked, "General Ji, we've already flown north for over 10,000 li. The area within 5,000 kilometers was occupied by the demon race. Not only were there large camps, but there were also strongholds. Where are we going to attack tonight? The other generals didn't say anything, but they also looked at Ji Tianqing with burning eyes. A playful smile appeared on Ji Tianqing's face as he uttered softly, "The middle camp at the foot of Mount Fish Dragon." Upon hearing this answer, the 6 generals froze, their eyes almost popping out of their sockets. What? The main camp of the demon race? Did I hear that right? Oh my God! Marshal Ji, are you going straight to the enemy's den? Unbelievable! Marshal Ji, you simply don't play by the rules. It's too scary. There are at least 1 million demon race soldiers in the middle camp. Marshal Ji, are you sure we're not going to deliver snacks? It's not necessarily snacks, it might even be a midnight snack for the demon race. Ji Tianqing glanced at them and snapped, "What nonsense are you talking about? Are you afraid?" Yun Hang muttered with a depressed expression, "We have an army of 600,000, and we're going to attack the most heavily defended middle camp. Isn't that just throwing our lives away? At that time, we'll all become the demon race's midnight snack." Ji Tianqing frowned and was about to reprimand him. On the side, Shi Qingshan and Jian Feiyong hurriedly tried to persuade Yun Hang. "General Yun, what you said is wrong. Isn't this just boosting the morale of the demon race and destroying the prestige of our army? So what if it's a 1 million-strong army? So what if it's the middle camp of the demon race? Under General Ji's iron hooves. Ahem, under General Ji's peerless divine might, 1 million demon race soldiers are nothing but dregs, they'll be annihilated in an instant." The other 2 generals also hurriedly tried to persuade him. They were very confident in Ji Tianqing. "General Yun, don't worry. General Ji led an army of 500,000 at Changlong Empire's Celestial Face Pass and destroyed the demon race's main camp, wiping out 1 million demon race soldiers. Everyone, don't forget that General Ji is the god of death whose name shakes the world. He can stop 1 million demon race soldiers with one sword. This general boldly guesses that General Ji will definitely sneak into the demon race's main camp and assassinate their generals and experts. We'll lead an army of 600,000 and lie in ambush outside the demon race's main camp. We'll take advantage of the chaos and kill our way in. Naturally, we'll be invincible." Other than Yun Hang, the other 5 generals worshipped Ji Tianqing very much. They trusted him almost blindly. Knowing that they were going to attack the middle camp of the demon race, not only were they not worried, they were even excited. Ji Tianqing was too lazy to say more. He said in a dignified tone, "Sima Kai is right. Ben Shuai's plan is actually an open one. He'll use absolute force to sweep through everything. Later, Ben Shuai will give you some talismans to break the demon race's main defense array. Ben Shuai will sneak into the demon race's main camp alone. You guys will lie in ambush outside and wait for Ben Shuai's signal to attack." He briefly explained the plan and the process. The generals had all heard of his deeds in the Empire of White Frost and Changlong Empire. They immediately understood what he meant. 2 hours later, it was midnight. The army of 600,000 slowed down and lowered their marching sounds and movements. They quietly arrived at the foot of Fish Dragon Mountain. The Fish Dragon Mountain was a lone peak that was 30,000 feet tall and had a precipitous terrain. The demon race had hollowed out the mountain and built tunnels and caves that extended in all directions. Hundreds of thousands of demon race soldiers were stationed there. Many tall and majestic palaces were built at the peak of the mountain. Those were the residences of the demon race's generals and the location of the scout camp. Even at the foot of the mountain, there were rows of houses built on the surrounding wasteland. Hundreds of thousands of demon race soldiers were stationed there. A fortress of black light with a radius of 150 kilometers covered the ground like a canopy, protecting the entire central camp. Even though it was late at night, the demon race's camp was still lit with specks of light, filled with black mist and dark red blood energy. There were also several dozen scouts and patrol squads patrolling the demon race's camp, monitoring the surroundings. Ji Tianxing used the Celestial Sphere secret technique and silently approached Fish-Dragon Mountain. After breaking through the defensive sacred array, he infiltrated the central camp. The 6 generals led the army and spread out into 6 squads, lying in ambush around Fish-Dragon Mountain. Everyone did their best to conceal their tracks and auras, doing their best to avoid being discovered by the demon race. They patiently waited for the right moment and the order. An hour later, Ji Tianxing reached the peak of Fish-Dragon Mountain and silently infiltrated the largest commander's palace in the center. He did not think much before entering the commander's palace. No one had discovered his tracks, and the central camp was very peaceful. However, when he entered the commander's palace, he discovered that the situation was not good. Logically speaking, the commander's palace, which took up an area of 3,000 feet, should have many demon race guards, demon generals, and experts living there. However, when he secretly probed with his spiritual sense, he discovered that the commander's palace was empty. Chapter 21:20. There must be something fishy going on. The abnormality in the commander's palace made Ji Tianxing realize that there might be an ambush here. But on second thought, that shouldn't be the case. Although he had announced in the day that he was going to lead the army out tonight. But he didn't reveal where exactly they were going to attack. He only announced the answer when the army was about to reach Fish-Dragon Mountain. It was impossible for the news to be leaked. Moreover, he had used his divine perception to check the commander's palace and didn't find any powerful traps or ambushes. There were only many defensive arrays and secret passages. It was very normal. Since there's no ambush, why is the commander's palace so empty? It's fine if the demon generals don't live here, but why are there so few guards? Ji Tianxing was puzzled and felt that something was wrong. So, he quietly entered the commander's palace and approached a few guards. These guards were guarding a secret passage. The ground and walls were made of black stone, and they had set up an array that could isolate sound and divine senses. The passage meandered downwards and seemed to lead to the underground of the commander's palace. It was so dark that nothing could be seen. When Ji Tianxing came to their side, they didn't notice and were still whispering to each other. Have the offerings been sent in? General Hu Cha has sent in more than 80,000 blood, qi, and essence souls. General Hu Cha brought 4 blood monarchs and infiltrated the Scarlet Sun Empire. They massacred an entire city and only managed to gather 80,000 blood and essence souls. Yes, only martial artists of origin core realm and above have blood, qi, and essence souls that can be used by Lord Devil Saint. Shut up, have you forgotten the commander's orders? Don't talk about this anymore. Stop talking, General Hu Cha and the 4 blood monarchs are about to come out. If he hears your discussion, be careful of your heads. The guards discussed for a while, and then quickly shut their mouth. Ji Tianxing frowned when he heard this. He thought to himself, offerings? 80,000 blood, qi, and essence souls? 4 Devil Saint? Could it be Devil Saint Song Yu? He was heavily injured by me and urgently needs large amounts of blood, qi, and essence souls to heal his injuries. Who would have thought that after he fled back to the Crimson Sun Empire, he would not guard the Heavenly Wolf Pass but instead hide on the Ichthyosaur Mountain? What a surprise. If he's really hiding here, then I've hit the jackpot. Thinking of this, Ji Tianxing's lips curled into a cold smile, his eyes filled with anticipation. He quietly passed through the dark tunnel and walked towards the depths of the tunnel. 300 meters later, there was a corner in front of him, which was also guarded by 4 guards. Just as he was about to turn the corner, he saw a tall and mighty demon general in black armor walking over with heavy steps. This demon general's eyes were very sharp, and his body exuded a terrifying murderous aura. His strength had also reached the 7th level of the Tribulation Transcendence realm. Ji Tianxing knew at a glance that this person was definitely a fierce general under Devil Sage Song Yu's command. He was also the General Hu Cha that the guards spoke of. Sure enough, when the 4 bodyguards saw General Hucha walking over, they hurriedly knelt on one knee and saluted. If it were any other day, Ji Tianxing would have killed General Hucha without hesitation. However, the current situation was special and related to Devil Sage Songyu. He suppressed his murderous aura and hid in the corner to wait. Only when General Hucha was far away did he continue along the tunnel. Another 300 meters later, a tall stone door appeared at the end of the tunnel. The black stone door was engraved with the image of a demon god and set up a saint-level defensive array. Ji Tianxing frowned and muttered to himself, "Once I break this array, I'll leak my magic power aura and alert the guards in the tunnel. Forget it, time is of the essence. I can't care so much." He made up his mind and used the God's Eye mystic technique to observe the array on the stone door. In just a few moments, he saw through this saint-level array and found a way to break it. Then, he formed a seal with both hands and began to cast a spell. He shot out a pure white light and injected it into the stone door. The saint-level demon array on the stone door was immediately corroded by the white light and quickly dissipated. However, at the same time, the white light and magic power aura that appeared out of nowhere also alerted the guards in the tunnel. "Something's wrong. Go and see what's going on. It's magic power aura. It's a human. Human powerhouses are invading. Someone come quickly." The originally quiet tunnel was immediately filled with exclamations and shouts. 8 guards holding swords and sabers rushed over with murderous intent. Ji Tianxing ignored them and slammed his palms on the stone door. With a loud bang, the black stone door, which was about 300 meters tall, shattered into pieces on the spot. Countless gravel splashed out and was wrapped in a violent airwave that swept through the entire tunnel. The 8 guards had just rushed over when they were blown away by the airwave. Ji Tianxing didn't even spare them a glance. With a flash, he passed through the shattered stone door and entered a spacious hall. This vast hall was the first underground floor of the Commander-in-Chief's palace. It was called the Underground Palace for short. The hall was about 300 meters in radius. It was very dark and the air was filled with a dark red mist. The floor and walls were made of huge black stones. They were engraved with images of demon gods and asuras. They were ferocious and terrifying. And in the middle of the hall, there was a 30-meter-tall sacrificial altar. The altar was made of blood crystals. It was dark red in color, with many purple and green gems interspersed within. At the bottom of the sacrificial altar was a blood pool with a radius of 100 meters. Dark red blood water surged and rose from it. Around the sacrificial altar were 9 stone pillars carved with ancient demon beasts. They were vaguely arranged in a mysterious array. Ji Tianxing only took 2 glances before he frowned and sneered. Soul-sealing blood-fusing array? It's actually an ancient mystic technique that was lost 1,000 years ago. It's a top ultimate technique of the blood demon sect. It looks like this is another ultimate technique passed down by the ancestor fiend celestial. The soul-sealing blood-fusing array was a healing mystic technique unique to the blood demon sect. No matter how badly injured a demon powerhouse was, as long as their physical body was not destroyed, they could use the sacrificial altar and mystic technique to absorb the blood and essence of billions of living beings to recover from their injuries at the fastest speed. When Ji Tianxing saw this array, he was certain that demon sage Songyo was definitely here. As expected, when he raised his head to look at the top of the sacrificial altar, he indeed saw a black figure sitting cross-legged in a ball of blood light. That was a middle-aged demon male in black robes. His body was thin and lean, and his appearance was like a demon wolf. He had strong arms and sharp claws. There was a huge triangular eye on his chest. There was even a pair of wings and a large tail on his back. It was demon sage Songyo. At this very moment, he was wrapped in dark red blood light. His eyes were closed and he was immersed in cultivation. His figure was hazy and illusory. His aura was also fluctuating. Clearly, His injuries had not fully recovered. Chapter 21:21. Before entering the main camp of the MO, Ji Tianxing had not thought that Song Yu would be hiding here. After all, everyone thought that Song Yu was guarding the main camp of the MO outside Celestial Wolf Pass. The so-called pleasant surprise was only for Ji Tianxing. He had been preparing to find Song Yu when Song Yu was in the commander's palace. Song Yu was startled awake by his voice. He immediately ended his cultivation and opened his eyes. His gaze passed through the dark red mist and stared straight at Ji Tianxing. His expression immediately changed. "It's you, Ji Tianxing." Song Yu frowned fiercely. His purple eyes flashed viciously as his body gave off strong anger and murderous intent. He clearly had not expected that Ji Tianxing would come to Fish Dragon Mountain and infiltrate the underground palace of the commander's palace. This seat was not outside Celestial Wolf Pass and purposely hid in the underground palace of Fish Dragon Mountain. "I also concealed the news. How did you find this place? Speak. Did some bastard leak the news?" He glared angrily at Ji Tianxing and asked in a dark tone. When his whereabouts were exposed, his first reaction was that someone had leaked the news. That was why he was so furious. Ji Tianxing followed his words and sneered. "Of course. If your subordinate had not leaked the news, how could I have found this place?" Song Yu became even angrier. He shouted with a vicious expression, "Which traitor betrayed this seat?" Ji Tianxing showed an amused smile and sneered. "Forgive me for not being able to tell you. Guess yourself." Song Yu was so angry he wanted to spit blood. His gaze constantly changed as he thought of who could have leaked the news. At this time, 8 disheveled guards passed through the shattered stone door and charged into the underground palace. "Kill him! Take him down. We cannot let him disturb Lord Mo Xing's cultivation." The guards shouted and swung their swords and sabers as they charged at Ji Tianxing without any regard for their own safety. In an instant, saber light, sword shadows, and scarlet blood light swept towards Ji Tianxing like a gale. Ji Tianxing didn't move at all. He didn't even turn around to look. He casually waved his hand and slapped behind him with the back of his hand. Boom! With a muffled explosion, the huge golden palm shattered everyone's attack. Furthermore, the 8 guards were also struck by the golden palm, and they spat out mouthfuls of blood as they flew backward. Everyone fell to the ground in a mess. After landing on the ground, they did not move at all. They died on the spot. After killing 8 guards in one move, Ji Tianxing wielded the Sword of Burial of Heaven. He looked at Song Yu with murderous intent and shouted coldly, "Song Yu, your time has come." Song Yu's expression was ugly, and his heart was filled with fear and worry. Nevertheless, he remained calm and collected, sitting steadily on the altar and yelling coldly, "Ji Tianxing, so what if you can find this place? Don't tell me you think that I didn't make the necessary preparations just because I was hiding here to heal my injuries? I originally planned to settle the score with you after I recovered from my injuries. Since you've delivered yourself to my doorstep, then how can I let you down? Tonight this place will be your burial ground." Song Yu's voice was low, and his tone was powerful. It was filled with confidence and dominance. Ji Tianxing could not help but frown. A thought popped into his mind. The demon race has always been sinister and cunning. Did Song Yu really set up an ambush here? At that moment, Song Yu's expression changed. His figure became illusory and blurry as he teleported out of the underground palace. Swoosh! The moment his figure disappeared, the 9 stone pillars around the altar suddenly released destructive blood-colored light beams that blasted toward Ji Tianxing. Ji Tianxing instantly understood that Song Yu was bluffing. He had already planned to escape. He was about to be hit by the 9 blood-colored light beams. At the critical moment, he did not hesitate to use the armillary sphere secret technique, and his figure disappeared into the darkness. Boom, 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 boom. The 9 blood-colored pillars of light slammed into the black stone-paved ground with a deafening boom. The ground was smashed into smithereens. More than half of the commander-in-chief's palace collapsed, and countless rocks and bricks fell. The underground palace was in chaos. Even the altar was destroyed by the shockwave, and cracks appeared all over it. Ji Tianxing had already merged with the world. He transferred the power of the 9 blood-colored light beams to the ground within 1,000 miles. The entire Dragon-Fish Mountain and the surrounding hundreds of miles of ground shook violently, producing muffled rumbling sounds. Ji Tianxing was unharmed. He did not linger for a moment. He hurriedly teleported out of the underground palace and arrived above Dragon-Fish Mountain. Under the pitch-black night sky, a faint black light was speeding toward the north. The black light was extremely fast, and its aura was also very powerful. It far surpassed ordinary demon generals and demon lords. Ji Tianxing naturally knew that it was Tsang Yu, who was fleeing for his life. A cold, murderous intent flashed across his eyes. He hurriedly teleported and gave chase. Swish, swish, swish. In just 3 short breaths, he had teleported more than 50 miles and blocked Tsang Yu's path. Heaven-cleaving sword. He roared with murderous intent. Holding the sword of burial of heaven with both hands, he slashed out a 100-meter-long golden sword at Tsang Yu. Tsang Yu was forced to stop. He sent out a dozen black shadow claws to block the attack of the giant sword. Bam, bam, bam! The claws clashed with the giant sword, producing a series of muffled sounds that reverberated in the night sky. The claws were all shattered, but the giant sword's power did not decrease at all. It slashed at Tsang Yu. Tsang Yu was sent flying back, and he let out a pained grunt. Fortunately, he had recovered 70% of his strength. He was still a demon saint that could not be underestimated. This sword strike only left a trace of blood on his body, causing him to suffer a light injury. Ji Tianxing stood in the night sky, holding the sword of burial of heaven. He looked at Tsang Yu with a cold smile and said in a contemptuous tone, "As a demon saint and commander-in-chief, you abandoned your 1,000,000-strong demon army and fled for your life. Tsang Yu, you've completely disgraced the demon saint. If this matter gets back to North Underworld Mountain, how will you have the face to see others?" Tsang Yu knew that he could not escape Ji Tianxing's pursuit, so he simply stopped in the night sky. Black light flashed in his hands, and a pitch-black halberd appeared. He pointed it at Ji Tianxing. "Ji Tianxing, you bastard, you've gone too far. You took advantage of my injury to launch a sneak attack. You're despicable and shameless." Ji Tianxing sneered disdainfully. "What morality is there to deal with you demons? What a joke. Cut the crap. I'll send you on your way now." As he spoke, he sent out a 1,000-meter-long dragon shadow with his left palm. He waved the sword in his right hand, sending out starlight toward Tsang Yu. Tsang Yu gripped the halberd with a serious expression. His body ignited with ice-blue flames, and he also sent out spear shadows to fight with Ji Tianxing. The light from the spells cast by both sides instantly dispelled the darkness in the night sky, illuminating a radius of hundreds of miles. Bang, 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 bang! Chapter 21-22. In the blink of an eye, Ji Tianxing and Tsang Yu had exchanged a few blows. The earth-shattering sounds of battle alerted the entire Dragonfish Mountain, as well as the millions of demon soldiers. Soon, several demon generals led hundreds of demon experts and charged at Ji Tianxing. 6 blood god illusions also turned into black mist and bloody light, quietly approaching him and waiting for an opportunity to launch a sneak attack. On the peak of Mount Fish Dragon, tens of thousands of soldiers of the scout camp were also on standby, ready to attack at any time. Even the hundreds of thousands of soldiers in the army camp at the foot of the mountain quickly readied themselves and were on high alert. Countless demon soldiers looked up at the night sky, paying close attention to the battle between Ji Tianxing and Tsang Yu. Only a few demon generals knew that Tsang Yu was hiding on Mount Fish Dragon. The millions of demon soldiers did not know. They were filled with doubts and whispered to each other. General Hucha and 5 Tribulation Transcendence Realm Demon Generals led hundreds of elite experts to attack Ji Tianxing. Ji Tianxing had just exchanged a blow with Song Yu and was about to use his sword technique to attack Song Yu again. At this moment, General Hucha and the 5 demon generals seized the opportunity and immediately attacked him from all sides. Demonic Dance, Sky-Shattering Slash, Sky-Shattering Blood Wave, Nether Ghost Soul Slaying Sword. With furious roars, the 6 experts brandished their swords and sabers in unison, releasing bloody light, black mist, and phantoms that blotted out the sky. Ji Tianxing's figure was about to be drowned out by the bloody light. At the critical moment, he used his ultimate technique with multitasking. His left palm struck out with 5-colored lightning while his right hand sent out starry sword light. Bang 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 bang! 64 rays of starry sword light slashed the bloody light and the phantoms of ghosts in the sky. Immediately after, the 5-colored divine lightning that blotted out the sky came crashing down and struck the demon generals. Kaboom! Only the sound of thunder exploding could be heard, shaking the heavens. A huge ball of 5-colored light exploded, rising into the night sky like a mushroom cloud. The 6 demon generals were sent flying by the explosion. Their bodies were covered in blood, and their faces were also covered in blood. Among them, 2 of the weaker demon generals were struck by the heavenly lightning and turned into charcoal on the spot. Their bodies were completely destroyed. Before their corpses fell to the ground, their souls left their bodies and flew toward the Fish-Dragon Mountain. The other 4 demon generals were also seriously injured. They constantly let out low growls and roars of pain. Only General Hucha was the strongest. Even if he was seriously injured, he could still hold on. He lowered his head to look at his badly mutilated chest and abdomen. Ignoring his own injuries, he once again wielded his sword and charged towards Ji Tianxing. At the same time, Ji Tianxing exchanged another move with Song Yu and repelled him by 15 kilometers. When General Hucha arrived behind him and the saber light was about to hit him, he turned his hand and pointed his finger. Heaven-piercing finger! He put his index and middle fingers together like a sword, shooting out a dazzling golden light that flashed in the night sky. Crack! With a loud and clear sound, General Hucha's saber light was penetrated by the golden light and shattered. Immediately after, the golden light pierced through his forehead and accurately hit his divine soul. The dark purple soul was torn apart on the spot. General Hucha was killed in an instant. His body was carried by the force of the impact and flew more than 10 miles away before falling down to the wilderness below. After Ji Tianxing killed General Hucha in one move, he charged towards the other demon generals without hesitation. Sword thrust! As the Heaven Barrier's sword stabbed forward, a cold light suddenly appeared and flickered in the night sky. In the next moment, a dazzling brilliance exploded in the head of a demon general. That round head of his exploded into a rain of blood on the spot, and his soul also collapsed and shattered. Ji Tianxing waved the barrier of heaven again and again, stabbing out a few times as fast as lightning. Cold sword glints tore through the night sky, striking those demon generals who were fleeing in panic. Including the 2 demon generals whose bodies had been destroyed and only had their souls left, they were shattered on the spot by the sword light. Just like that, 6 elite demon generals were killed by Ji Tianxing in less than 2 breaths. Song Yu had just rushed over and wanted to stop him, but it was already too late. Seeing the 6 demon generals being blasted to smithereens with his own eyes, he was so angry that his eyes were bloodshot. His body ignited with bloody flames that soared into the sky. Ji Tianxing, even if I die here, I will tear you to pieces. As he roared, he waved his black halberd with all his might. In an instant, he stabbed out hundreds of bloody and black light spear blades that enveloped Ji Tianxing's figure. Ji Tianxing could only wave his sword to block and defeat the bloody light and spear blades that filled the sky. However, just as he resolved Song Yu's attack, A cold aura of death suddenly attacked from behind. The two Blood Gods clones turned into bloody swords that were 10 feet long and stabbed at the back of Su Mo's head and neck. The two Blood Gods clones had been lurking nearby for a long time before they seized this rare opportunity. In order to kill Su Mo in one hit, they had personally formed the bloody swords to explode with the most powerful attack. Ji Tianxing could not block or dodge in time and was about to be stabbed by the two bloody swords. At this critical moment, his spiritual soul was condensed to the extreme and his spiritual power was also unleashed to the extreme. He entered a state of extreme focus and gave it his all. At that moment, he could clearly feel that the martial arts bottleneck had begun to loosen. He had already shown signs of breaking through to the martial sage realm. Celestial Dragon Body. Without hesitation, he lifted his head and roared. His body lit up with a golden light that soared into the sky. Roar. The golden light that soared into the sky condensed into a huge golden dragon shadow. It lifted its head and let out a dragon roar that shook the clouds. Its power was shocking. Ji Tianxing's body suddenly expanded and he turned into a 10 feet tall golden armored giant. His muscles bulged and he looked extremely majestic. His body was covered with golden dragon scales and he exuded a violent and overbearing aura. He was like a golden armored war god that had descended. Bam bam! The two Blood Gods clones that had turned into bloody swords accurately hit Su Mo's legs and back. In the deafening sound, the golden light exploded and the bloody swords shattered into pieces, splattering in all directions. Ji Tianxing's body shook violently and he was thrown 1,000 feet away by the terrifying impact. However, other than that, he did not suffer any substantial injuries. The dragon scales on his legs and back were still intact and there was not even a drop of blood. There were only 2 shallow scratches. The powerful defense of the celestial dragon body was undoubtedly displayed at that moment. On the other hand, the two Blood Gods clones were not only unable to break through Ji Tianxing's defense, but their bodies were also shattered. Fortunately, they were Blood Gods clones that were almost immortal. Even if they were shattered into pieces, they could quickly be pieced back together. Such a shocking scene caused numerous demon tribe members to turn pale with fright. They were shocked and terrified to the extreme. Even Song Yu's expression changed drastically. His eyes were filled with intense shock and disbelief. How can this be? The full-force attack of the two Blood Gods did not even break through his defense? Chapter 21-23. After using the Celestial Dragon Tyrant body, Ji Tianxing's defense and strength reached the peak. He was like an invincible god of war, shuttling through the sky, invincible. Hundreds of Demon Clan experts formed a battle formation and jointly released a destructive blood dragon and light blade storm. However, he rushed over arrogantly, waving his huge fists and punching out dozens of mountain-sized fist shadows. Bang! 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 A burst of brilliance flashed and a loud noise shook the sky. All of the attacks collapsed and turned into violent shockwaves that spread out in all directions. Ji Tianxing passed through the light fragments and scathed and rushed to the front of the hundreds of Demon Clan experts. Die! He let out a low growl in a sinister tone. His palms repeatedly shot out divine starfire, which blasted into the battle formation. Another series of explosions rang out, and the hundreds of demon race experts were smashed to pieces on the spot. They turned into pieces of flesh and blood that rained down from the sky. Not a single person had survived. Such a terrifying scene made every Demon Clan expert feel a chill down their spines. However, Ji Tianxing was in the mood to kill. His figure flashed through the bloody rain and rushed to the front of a group of Demon Clan experts. Star-shattering fist. He instantly punched out dozens of silver fist lights and killed dozens of Demon Clan experts. No one could block his move. As long as they were hit, they would die without a doubt. His figure kept flashing in the sky, and in the blink of an eye, he killed hundreds of Demon Clan experts. Song Yu finally came to his senses and rushed up in rage. Ji Tianxing, don't be so arrogant! He roared and waved the black demon war halberd with all his strength, thrusting out spear blades that filled the sky and creating a shocking storm. This time, he made up his mind. Even if he had to endure his injuries, he would attack Ji Tianxing with all his strength and not give him a chance to breathe. Anyway, this was Mount Fish Dragon, and there were millions of troops here. As long as he delayed Ji Tianxing, the soldiers would activate the formation and join forces to form a joint attack formation to help him deal with Ji Tianxing. I don't believe that I can't kill you with the power of millions of soldiers in me? In this world, apart from the martial god, there is absolutely no one who can stop him. If it had been anyone else, even if they were a rank 8 or 9 martial sage, they would not have been able to withstand it. However, Ji Tianxing was an anomaly, an evildoer and a monster. He could not be judged by common sense. Song Yu's plans and ideas were destined to fail. 7-star sword. Broken moon sword. Sun-shattering sword. Heavenly dragon world slash. Ji Tianxing constantly executed his ultimate skills and secret techniques, attacking Song Yu madly, beating him back repeatedly. Not far away, 8 Tribulation Realm demon generals and the Blood God's son led more than 300 demon clan masters to form the 6th Saint Demon Battle Formation. They joined forces to release an earth-shattering spell attack, which poured down on Ji Tianxing like a flood. Further away in the night sky, there were more than 10,000 warriors from the scout camp. They used Dharma treasure bows and charms to release a rain of arrows, which covered the sky and the sun. They continuously attacked Ji Tianxing. No one expected to kill Ji Tianxing on the spot. They only hoped to restrain him and injure him to create an opportunity for Song Yu. Ji Tianxing suddenly felt the pressure on him increase. He was like a small boat in a stormy sea that could capsize at any time and be drowned by the sea. The crisis of life and death forced his spiritual soul, willpower, and mind to the extreme. The vast dermic powers in his body were also activated to the extreme. Even the 360 meridians in his body and the 108,000 pores were activated, rapidly absorbing the spiritual chi of heaven and earth and the power of the stars. This kind of profound state was precisely the limit that martial artists yearned for even in their dreams. If he wanted to advance to the martial sage realm, he had to break through his own limits. 10 breaths, 30 breaths, 50 breaths, very quickly, 100 breaths passed. Ji Tianxing could clearly feel that the barrier and bottleneck of the martial sage realm was gradually disappearing with the passage of time. On the surface, he was surrounded by danger and his life was hanging by a thread. He could die at any time. However, in reality, he was laughing heartily in his heart. He was very satisfied and looked forward to it. Ha ha ha, just as I expected, I am facing off against Song Yu and the many demon tribesmen alone. I can only unleash all my potential at the moment of life and death. Song Yu, this is indeed the opportunity for me to break through to the martial sage realm. Hold on for a while longer, and I will be able to break through soon. This thought flashed across his mind. He gave it his all and unleashed his potential at all costs in order to reach the limit. The pressure on Song Yu instantly increased, and he retreated pathetically. Countless wounds appeared on his body and demon blood spurted out. The surrounding demon generals and hundreds of experts also felt the pressure increase. Everyone gritted their teeth and unleashed their strongest power, attacking Ji Tianxing with all their might. Such an intense battle caused chaos within a 100-mile radius. The dazzling radiance of dermic powers lit up the entire Dragon-Fish Mountain, making it as bright as day for 100 miles. In the demon army camp at the foot of the mountain, hundreds of thousands of people looked up at the night sky in a daze. The 600,000 human tribesmen who were lying in ambush around the camp felt their hearts in their throats as they broke out in cold sweat for Ji Tianxing. Finally, 15 minutes passed. Ji Tianxing maintained his peak state for a quarter of an hour. His mind and soul felt deeply fatigued and exhausted. His consciousness also showed a brief moment of dizziness. However, Song Yu's situation was even worse. Song Yu had already been hit by more than 30 blows. His chest alone had been hit 8 times. It was a bloody mess and demon blood kept flowing out. His injuries were too severe and he could not take it anymore. He could only use his trump card again. 9 Nether Demon Wolf Transformation. He roared to the sky in grief and indignation as his body burned with a bloody flame. In the next moment, his body turned into a cloud of black mist and scattered in the night sky. A pitch-black demon wolf that was thousands of feet long and as huge as a mountain appeared. Every time Song Yu used the 9 Nether Demon Wolf transformation, he would burn his blood soul and sacrifice 100 years of cultivation, causing his strength to drop greatly. He had only used it once before and had not been able to kill Ji Tianxing. Instead, he had been severely injured and had fled. Now that he had not recovered from his injuries, he would definitely suffer an even more terrifying backlash if he forcefully used this technique again. Even the foundation of his Devil Dao could very well be destroyed because of this. By then, even if he could kill Ji Tianxing, he would be reduced to a useless demon saint and would never be able to become stronger again. That was why he was so indignant. However, Song Yu did not expect that just as he was filled with despair and used the 9 Nether Demon Wolf transformation, Ji Tianxing would also change. He also stopped attacking and actually raised his head to look at the sky. He opened his wide arms and shouted in a voice that was as loud as a bell. "Break!" This cold shout was like a sudden clap of thunder, exploding in the night sky and spreading over a radius of 800 miles, causing the entire Dragon Fish Mountain to tremble. In the next instant, infinite golden light surged out of his body and formed a pillar of light that shot into the sky. It burned with a golden flame that covered the sky. Chapter 21-24. The sudden change shocked everyone. Ji Tianxing, who was 30 meters tall and looked like a god of war in golden armor, opened his arms to embrace the sky and welcomed the holy aura. The golden light behind him soared into the sky, and the golden light in the sky shone brightly. It condensed into 9 incomparably huge divine dragons, and they roared with their heads held high. Dazzling 5-colored rays of light appeared and covered the sky, extending to the end of the horizon. Such an earth-shattering scene could be seen clearly from 1,000,000 miles away. Even the living beings in the Luoshui Divine Kingdom, which spanned hundreds of millions of miles, could see it. This was definitely not a martial artist's technique, but a heaven and earth vision. Only the mighty power of heaven and earth could produce such a shocking scene. Song Yu, who had transformed into the 9 Nether Demon Wolf, stared at Ji Tianxing with his 3 eyes and was stunned. He was stunned for a moment before he realized what had happened and roared. You actually broke through? This heaven and earth vision only appears when one breaks through to the martial sage realm. No. Didn't you reach the martial sage realm long ago? How could you only break through to the martial sage realm now? Song Yu was completely dumbfounded. He was so shocked that his body stiffened and his mind went blank. He had always thought that Ji Tianxing was a martial sage and was one of the best among the martial sages. Otherwise, how could Ji Tianxing possibly defeat him and beat him up so miserably? However, the heaven and earth vision in front of him was very real and the heaven way would not be wrong. He then realized that Ji Tianxing had not broken through to the martial sage realm. However, how could Ji Tianxing, who was at the 9th stage of the tribulation stage, defeat him, a 7th stage demon sage? This was simply the most ridiculous thing in the world. Song Yu refused to believe it and could not accept this outcome. A few demon generals, hundreds of demon clan experts, and millions of demon clan soldiers were all stunned. All the demon clan soldiers on Dragon Fish Mountain were petrified. They stared blankly at the sky and were mesmerized by the dazzling heaven and earth vision. Not only that, the 600,000 human clan soldiers, who were lying in ambush outside the demon clan camp, were also in an uproar. In the beginning, many people did not know what the heaven and earth vision represented. However, the 6 generals were very clear that it was the heaven and earth vision when one broke through to the martial sage realm. After they exclaimed, the hundreds of thousands of soldiers spread the news and they finally understood the truth. It turned out that Marshal G, who they admired and was invincible martial sage realm, had just broken through to the martial sage realm. This news was like a bolt out of the blue and earth vision and heaven and earth. After a long while, the generals came back to their senses. Heaven and earth of the heaven and earth of the heaven and earth vision of the heavens. This is unbelievable. Marshal of the heavens of the tribulation heavens. But General G killed millions of devil soldiers and several devil saints. How did he do it? There's absolutely no reasonable explanation other than the existence of a deity. Heaven, heaven. Heaven, heaven, and heaven, earth, earth. Heaven. Of heaven, heaven. Earth, heaven, heaven of the heaven. This means that Marshal G is able to attract 9 heavenly thunders every time he transcends a tribulation. He is a rare genius that only appears once in 1,000 years. Heaven. When other martial sages break through to the heaven and earth vision, there would only be 6 or 7 spiritual beasts or stars. There would not be any divine beasts. Now that Ji Shui has broken through to the martial sage realm, there are 9 divine dragons. Divine dragons are the noblest divine beasts in the world. This means that Marshal of heaven and earth's talent and future are beyond imagination. Ha 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 ha. The heaven and earth vision of Ji Shui breaking through to the martial sage realm is comparable to that of the 3 great divine masters breaking through to the martial god realm. I bet that half of the people in the mainland will know about this by tomorrow morning. Just as the people were discussing, the light pillar in the night sky slowly retreated back into Ji Tianqing's body. The divine aura that descended from the heavens was also stored in his body, refined and absorbed by him. His body and spiritual soul had been baptized by the heaven and earth's divine force and had been completely reborn. From today onwards, he had surpassed the limits of a mortal and a martial artist. He had 1 foot in the door of the divine path. In terms of martial arts, he was already at the pinnacle, reaching the pinnacle. Next, he would cultivate the divine path. It was a superpower that could control everything in the universe. This was a whole new realm. If it were anyone else, breaking through to the martial sage realm would mean stepping into a new realm. There would be many discomfort and confusion. They would need some time to adapt and stabilize their martial way foundation. However, for Ji Tianqing, the most familiar feeling once again filled his body. All the 5 elements and heaven and earth forces within a 10,000-mile radius were under his command and control. Even the starlight in the heavens would sprinkle down formless star forces and naturally enter his body. He slowly opened his eyes, and a dazzling light flashed in his deep, dark eyes. A sacred and majestic aura exploded from his body and spread out for a 1,000-mile radius. Martial Sage Realm, I am back. He looked up at the starry sky and muttered with a complicated expression. Not far away, Song Yu and the many demon clan experts revealed strange expressions. Everyone could clearly feel that after Ji Tianqing had broken through to the martial sage realm, he seemed to have changed into a different person. His aura was sacred and majestic, cold and dignified. He was like a divine spirit that looked down on all living beings. It was as if he had become one with the heavens and earth. There was no aura at all and no one could detect his background. However, he was omnipresent. If one looked at him with their naked eyes, they would be able to see him. However, if one closed their eyes and used their spiritual senses to detect him, they would not be able to detect him. He was clearly just one person. However, when one looked at him, it was as if they were looking at mountains and rivers. That strange and mysterious feeling could not be described with words. Song Yu's expression changed. Deep fear and dread surged in his eyes, and he faintly felt like retreating. However, the surrounding demon generals and demon clan experts did not know how powerful he was. They were not knowledgeable and did not know what Ji Tianxing's transformation meant. The Supreme Being who had once ruled over the 9 heavens had returned. Although he had only returned to the martial sage realm, he had already surpassed the ordinary and stepped into the divine path. This meant that he could finally use all his superpowers and use the essence of the Kenshin way. What are you all waiting for? Quickly kill him. That's right. He has just broken through and his realm is not stable yet. Now is the best time. 2 angry shouts came from the crowd. 2 demon generals could not wait any longer and waved their swords and sabers as they charged toward Ji Tianxing. The remaining demon generals, Blood God's son, and the hundreds of demon clan experts all seemed to have awakened from a dream. They all executed a secret combination attack and besieged Ji Tianxing. Ji Tianxing, who had been looking up at the sky, suddenly turned his head to look at the crowd. A cold light flashed in his cold eyes. You are courting death. That cold and indifferent gaze was like a divine spirit looking down on ants. Chapter 21-25. With a wave of his sleeve, the starlight that blotted out the sky swept over. Whoosh! The next moment, several demon generals, Blood God's sons, and more than 200 demon race experts were all drowned in the dazzling starlight. The night sky was dazzling and dazzling. It was like a bright moon had fallen to the earth, illuminating thousands of miles around. The silver starlight flashed and quickly dissipated. The night sky returned to darkness, but the demon generals, Blood God's sons, and demon race experts had all disappeared. No one knew where they had gone or whether they were alive or dead. Only the stronger demons noticed that the night sky was filled with black ash that dissipated with the wind. Without a doubt, those demon generals, Blood God's sons, and elite experts had all been turned to dust. Ji Tianxing had only casually waved his sleeve and killed hundreds of experts and experts. Such powerful strength and miraculous means made everyone present dumbfounded. Song Yu's expression changed dramatically, and his eyes were filled with shock and fear. Previously, he still had a glimmer of hope in his heart, but now even his last hope of victory had been extinguished. He had to accept reality. Not only was he no match for Ji Tianxing, but even with the addition of 1,000,000 demon race soldiers, it was impossible for them to kill Ji Tianxing. This person was already invincible, like a god. Thinking of this, Song Yu shouted hoarsely and murderously, "Everyone, listen to my order. Kill Ji Tianxing at all costs. Warriors of my race, even if we bleed to the last drop of blood, we can't let him leave alive." Song Yu's voice was sonorous and forceful, full of iron and blood. Countless demon race soldiers, whose morale had been completely depleted, were stimulated at this moment. They all let out deafening roars and battle cries as they charged toward Ji Tianxing in the night sky. Kill! Be loyal to the ancestor until death. Everyone, let's go together. Even if we are smashed to pieces, let his blood run dry and his soul wither. No one is allowed to take a step back. Even if we die, we can't disgrace our race. At least 100,000 demon race soldiers surged out of Fish Dragon Mountain. Like a pitch-black tide, they swept toward Ji Tianxing. After Song Yu gave the order, he quietly concealed himself and flew north without a sound. Half a month ago, Northern Underworld Mountain had sent news. The ancestor demon god had learned of the situation in the north and intended for the demon race army to retreat to Northern Underworld Mountain. Back then, Song Yu had not received the exact order, so he could not withdraw his troops on his own. He could only hide in Fish Dragon Mountain to heal his wounds. But now, he could no longer care so much. He would rather sacrifice the 1,000,000-strong army of the Fish Dragon Mountain to stall Ji Tianxing and create a chance for him to escape. However, Song Yu underestimated Ji Tianxing in the end. Ji Song Yu of the demon race's demon race. As such, when the 100,000 devilish soldiers charged toward him, he made a hand seal with both hands and let loose a low cry with a cold expression. As his voice fell, the night sky that was as dark as ink suddenly became deathly still, as if a mirror had been frozen. The space within a radius of 1,000 kilometers seemed to have been sealed in ice. The movements of the 100,000 demon race soldiers became extremely slow, like they had been slowed down 100 times. Thousands of cracks appeared in the pitch-black night sky. Dazzling starlight shone from within. Swish, 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 swish. In the next moment, over 9,000 huge swords condensed from starlight pierced through the cracks and rained down on the demon race army. This was one of Kenshin's ultimate sword techniques, sword rain. The starlight swords formed from the power of stars in outer space gathered like rain. Such a wondrous technique was the true ultimate technique of Kenshin. As the sword rain rained down, the 100,000 demon race soldiers were immediately enveloped by sword shadows. Body after body was sliced apart by the sword light. They were minced into pieces of flesh and blood that rained down. Screams and howls of rage erupted in the night sky, converging into a terrifying torrent of sound waves that reverberated endlessly. Ji Tianxing was nowhere to be seen. He did not need to look to know that the fate of the 100,000 demon race soldiers was certain death. Whoosh! He took 5 steps as if he was taking a leisurely stroll, and he flew 150 kilometers away as if he had teleported, catching up to Songyu. Songyu suddenly sensed danger approaching. His back was icy cold, and the aura of death emerged from the depths of his soul. For the first time in his life, he felt that he was so close to death. Without hesitation, he used a teleportation secret technique. He wanted to teleport 800 kilometers away from Mount Fish Dragon. Whoosh! With a flash of black light, his 1,000-foot-tall demon wolf body became illusory and blurry. He was about to vanish from the spot. He was about to escape from Ji Tianxing's eyes. However, a horrifying scene appeared. Just as Songyu was about to teleport away, Ji Tianxing suddenly reached out with his right hand and grabbed at him. Bam! A huge dark golden dragon claw instantly grabbed Songyu and held him firmly. He was about to enter the alternate space when the dark golden dragon claw violently pulled him out. Songyu was instantly horrified. His 3 eyes opened wide while unparalleled terror surged out from the bottom of his heart. Damn it! What secret technique is this? How can it forcefully interrupt my teleportation? Ji Tianxing, this bastard. Where did he come from? He is definitely not a newly advanced martial sage. Songyu did not believe that Ji Tianxing had just broken through to the martial sage realm. Such a tyrannical and mysterious technique was definitely not something an ordinary martial sage could perform. Just as this thought flashed through Songyu's mind, he suddenly felt a sharp pain in his body as if it was being torn apart. He then realized that the dark golden dragon claw had suddenly tightened and was ruthlessly crushing him. The 1,000-foot-long body of the demonic wolf was extremely fragile in front of the dark golden dragon claw. Immediately, a cracking sound could be heard as dense cracks appeared on the wolf's body. The heart-wrenching pain caused Songyu to cry out in pain as he struggled with all his might. Ah! Ji Tianxing, you bastard! I will tear you apart! Songyu recklessly exploded with power. His body suddenly shrunk by 10 times before it violently expanded. Bam! There was a muffled sound as the dark golden dragon claw was blown to pieces and turned into numerous golden light fragments that dissipated. Songyu had finally escaped from Ji Tianxing's grasp. However, his body was covered in blood and he looked extremely miserable. His wings and legs had been crushed and they drooped weakly on his body. Broken demon bones could be seen in his wounds. His body was covered in cracks and wounds, and he looked like a broken porcelain bowl. Dark purple demon blood gushed out like a fountain and dyed his body dark purple. Songyu retreated 20 miles away and glared at Ji Tianxing with hatred. He shouted in a hoarse voice, Ji Tianxing, stop. I want to negotiate with you. Chapter 21-26. Seeing Ji Tianxing's decisive refusal, Song Yu's heart burned with worry. He said anxiously, Ji Tianxing, I admit that you are very strong, but you are alone. How can you protect all the people of the Luoshui Divine Kingdom? Even if you can kill me, there are still more than 3 million soldiers outside the Fish Dragon Mountain and Sky Wolf Pass. Once I die, they will attack the Luoshui Divine Kingdom without a care. They will slaughter at least a few million people. Moreover, countless blood sovereigns and elite experts will sneak into the Luoshui Divine Kingdom and massacre the city. Even if I die, millions of people will die with me. Song Yu spoke very quickly, and his tone was also very firm, revealing an unquestionable tone. However, if you can spare my life and stop the war, I will immediately order the army to retreat. All the demons on the northern battlefront will retreat to North Underworld Mountain as quickly as possible. Isn't this the result that the Luoshui Divine Kingdom wants? Moreover, the millions of people of the Luoshui Divine Kingdom won't have to die. Ji Tianxing, this deal is beneficial to you. I hope you can seize the opportunity. After speaking his thoughts, Song Yu reminded Ji Tianxing in a serious tone, afraid that he would not consider it seriously. Ji Tianxing glanced at him with a disdainful sneer on his cold face. He said indifferently, at first glance, what you said seems to make sense. Song Yu was overjoyed and asked expectantly, so, you agree? No. Ji Tianxing shook his head and said coldly, I refuse. What I want is not only the retreat of the demon army and the resolution of the Luoshui Divine Kingdom's crisis. I want all the demons who invade the Luoshui Divine Kingdom to die here and be unable to return to North Underworld Mountain. All the demons, including you, must die. Ji Tianxing's tone was equally domineering and full of confidence. Song Yu's body stiffened, and his 3 eyes widened with grief and indignation. Ji Tianxing, you are too arrogant. Do you really think you are a god? You're so overbearing. One day, you'll fall in the hands of my devil race and suffer the pain of being hacked into pieces. Ji Tianxing looked at him coldly and said in a calm voice, You won't be able to see whether I will fall into the hands of the demon race. After all, you're going to die soon. Moreover, you're going to be smashed into pieces and die without a complete corpse. After he finished speaking, he did not waste any more words with Song Yu. His right hand pointed at the sky as he shouted expressionlessly, Hidden swords in the void, myriad swords return to origin. As his voice fell, tens of thousands of starlight spots suddenly lit up high in the night sky. Each of the light spots was a giant sword of starlight that was hundreds of meters long. They fell like shooting stars. Swish, swish. Tens of thousands of stellar swords stabbed down at the same time, firmly locking onto Song Yu's aura, making it impossible for him to dodge. Instantly, the night sky within a radius of several thousand miles was illuminated by the silver starlight. Song Yu was under great pressure. His body trembled and the wounds all over his body ruptured at an accelerated rate. However, he did his best to hold on and roared in grief and indignation, Ji Tianxing, even if I die, I won't let you have it easy. As he roared, he suddenly opened the third eye on his chest, releasing an endless amount of black light. The extremely pure black light condensed into a pillar of light that was hundreds of meters long. It carried a mysterious and cold power as it blasted towards Ji Tianxing. Song Yu had used this secret art before. Ji Tianxing also knew that the black pillar of light was the power of annihilation. However, he was fearless. His expression and eyes did not show any signs of retreating or worry. He raised his hand and punched without hesitation. Star-shattering fist. A golden fist the size of a mountain slammed towards the pillar of annihilation with destructive power. Boom! The two collided with a deafening sound that shook the world for thousands of miles. Ripples appeared in the night sky. the ground trembled violently and fissures appeared. A violent shock wave spread out in all directions along with countless fragments of golden light. The golden fist was shattered, but the pillar of annihilation was also completely destroyed. Song Yu's ultimate trump card had been neutralized by Ji Tianxing just like that. He was filled with despair and turned to flee. However, tens of thousands of starlight swords had already arrived. Bam 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 bam! In an instant, hundreds of starlight swords stabbed into his body, creating a series of loud booms. The 3,000-meter-long demon wolf's body was instantly riddled with holes. Flesh and blood splattered everywhere. The previously ferocious and terrifying demonic wolf's body was immediately reduced to a bloody mess. Song Yu screamed in pain and desperately swung his claws to shatter the starlight swords. He also used all his strength to release demonic power and condense a black shield to protect himself. Unfortunately, under the bombardment of tens of thousands of swords, the black shield quickly dissipated. In less than 10 breaths, Song Yu's demon wolf body was shattered by the tens of thousands of starlight swords and scattered into the night sky. At the same time, thousands of starlight swords shattered and turned into starlight that scattered into the night sky. Whoosh! A dark purple wolf-shaped divine soul charged out of the rain of blood. Burning with dark red flames, it sped towards the north. Even though Song Yu's physical body was destroyed and only his divine soul was left, he still did not give up. However, he still didn't give up on escaping. He used a secret technique at all costs and flashed through the night sky. Ji Tianxing stared coldly at the divine soul. He raised his right hand unhurriedly and formed a few hand seals with his hands. Condense! Following his cold shout, the scattered starlight in the night sky immediately condensed into a giant sword that was thousands of feet long, like a white rainbow. Kill! Ji Tianxing shouted again and pointed at the fleeing Song Yu with his right hand. The 1,000-foot-long starlight sword immediately turned into a ray of silver light and began its pursuit. The starlight sword was so fast that it even left behind a dazzling trail of flames. In just 2 short breaths, the starlight sword had crossed 500 kilometers and viciously struck Song Yu's divine soul. Bang! With a deafening sound, the wolf-shaped divine soul collapsed on the spot, exploding into dozens of pieces that scattered into the night sky. A martial saint expert, the infamous second demon Saint Song Yu, had died just like that. Even Ji Tianxing was rather surprised and could not help but frown. The demon race has always been cunning and treacherous. They will not die so easily. Did Song Yu not have a backup plan, such as cultivating the celestial demon jade seed technique or some ultimate life-saving technique? Earlier, he had thought that killing Song Yu would take some effort and waste some time. He had not imagined that it would be so easy. He had not even used his trump card. However, on second thought, Song Yu had just been heavily injured and had not recovered from his injuries. He only had around 70% of his strength. It was inevitable that he would be killed. Whoosh! Ji Tianxing flew to the place where the divine soul fragments were scattered. He waved his hand and sent out several rays of golden light, picking up the fragments. Then, he used the divine power of the heaven-mending orb to purify the divine soul fragments. Chapter 21-27. Ji Tianxing had successfully broken through to the martial sage realm, and he had killed Song Yu. He had achieved all his goals in this battle. Hence, he turned and flew toward Fish Dragon Mountain. Now, he only had one goal left, and that was to destroy the million-strong demon army at Fish Dragon Mountain. Swoosh! Ji Tianxing strode across the night sky and returned to the sky above Fish Dragon Mountain in 10 breaths. Although the 600,000-strong human tribe soldiers were still lying in ambush outside the camp. Without Ji Tianxing's orders, they wouldn't attack without permission. However, the entire Fish Dragon Mountain was in chaos. The commander-in-chief, Song Yu, was dead. More than a dozen demon generals and blood god sons had also been killed. Even the 100,000 demon tribe soldiers who had attacked Ji Tianxing had died under the starry sword rain and were crushed into powder. As the starry sword rain poured down, the area within a radius of a few hundred miles was affected. Even though Fish Dragon Mountain had a defensive array, it was riddled with holes by the starry sword rain and shattered into pieces. It was no longer there. Fish Dragon Mountain, which was 3,000 feet tall, had been reduced to ruins by the starry sword rain. More than half of the majestic mountain had collapsed and countless rocks were scattered in all directions, crashing into the demon tribe camp. At least tens of thousands of demon tribe soldiers had died when Fish Dragon Mountain collapsed. The demon tribe camp had been reduced to a mess. Hundreds of thousands of demon tribe soldiers ran around in a panic, shouting anxiously and helplessly. Most of the soldiers were facing a situation where they couldn't find their general and couldn't hear his orders. Only a small number of demon tribe soldiers, who were in charge of logistics and fortifications, were busy clearing the ruins and rescuing the injured demon tribe soldiers. Ji Tianxing stood in the night sky and looked down at the situation below. He slowly lifted his hand and released a ray of golden light. Swoosh! The golden light shot up into the sky and formed a golden divine dragon in the sky. It bared its fangs and brandished its claws as it roared. Roar! In an instant, the area within a radius of 1,000 miles was illuminated by the golden light. A loud dragon roar reverberated in all directions. This was the signal to attack. The human tribe soldiers who had been lying in ambush around the demon tribe camp could not suppress their desire to fight. Once they saw the signal to attack, a loud bugle horn sounded in the army. Countless soldiers shouted excitedly, "Kill! Charge into the demon race's camp and kill them all! Warriors of the Scarlet Sun Empire, it's time to make a name for yourself! Make a name for yourself tonight!" Along with the battle cries, the 600,000-strong human army surged toward the Fish Dragon Mountain camp from all directions like a tide. The scouts of the Devil race had long discovered the existence of the human army. As early as when Ji Tianxing and Song Yu were fighting a great battle, there were already several 100,000 fiend army guarding the surroundings of the camp, preventing the human army from launching a sneak attack. However, the power of Ji Tianxing and Song Yu's battle was too great. This was especially true for the sword rain, which brought about a devastating disaster to Mount Fish Dragon. The entire Devil Army camp was in chaos. Naturally, no one cared about defense. It was only when the human race army began to charge that the demon race soldiers finally reacted. They hurriedly took out their weapons and ran around the camp to defend. If they had the protection of a saint-level defensive formation, the Devil race army would still have the power to fight. Unfortunately, the defensive formation had long been destroyed. Before long, the human race army successfully passed through the broken formation and charged into the camp. The two armies clashed and immediately engaged in a bitter and bloody battle. However, the Devil race army was panicking. Their morale was low and everyone was anxious. However, the human race army was full of vigor and excitement. The soldiers seemed to have been injected with chicken blood. The result of the battle between the two sides could be imagined. Clang, 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 boom, 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 boom. The clashing of weapons, the explosions of Dharma arts and secret techniques, and the clashing of experts converged into a deafening sound wave that reverberated endlessly in the night sky. Ji Tianxing stood high in the sky, looking down indifferently. There was neither sorrow nor joy on his face. Seeing the human soldiers charging bravely but still suffering a large number of casualties, he could not help but frown. Even though the Devil race did not have a commander and their morale was very low, they did not lose their ability to fight. In this desperate situation, the Devil race became even more ferocious. They would rather fight like caged beasts than easily retreat. The human race army had to kill 10,000 Devil race soldiers, which meant 3,000 to 4,000 casualties. This was not good news. Thus, Ji Tianxing had to act personally to speed up the slaughter of the Devil Race army. 5-colored divine lightning. Ji Tianxing waved his left hand and his sleeves fluttered, sending down pillars of lightning that filled the sky. Boom! 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 Hundreds of 5-colored pillars of lightning landed in the midst of the Devil Race army with a deafening boom. Instantly, the dilapidated fish dragon mountain was completely shattered by the heavenly lightning, collapsing into a large expanse of scorched earth and ruins. Tens of thousands of Devil Race soldiers were killed on the spot by the heavenly lightning, turning into charcoal and dust that scattered among the ruins. Meteor fire shower. Ji Tianxing formed a spell with his right hand, directing the power of the stars and heavenly fire in the 9 heavens to bombard the Devil Race army. Immediately, hundreds of dazzling meteors, accompanied by crimson heavenly fire, rained down from the sky. Whoosh! Boom! 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 Everything within a 200-mile radius was turned into a sea of fire. The meteors blasted countless holes in the ground, sending smoke and dust into the air. The ruins of the collapsed Fish Dragon Mountain were blasted away on the spot. Another 300,000 Devil Race soldiers were burned to ashes by the sea of fire, dying without a complete corpse. The Devil Race army was completely scared out of their wit. Their anger and murderous intent had all dissipated. Ji Tianxing stood in the night sky like a deity. Every move he made could unleash a calamity that could destroy the world. How could they continue fighting? If they delayed any longer, Ji Tianxing could probably use a few more moves to destroy everything within a 1,000-mile radius. By then, even 3 or 5 million Devil Race soldiers would not be enough for him to slaughter, let alone 1 million. This guy was no longer human. He was a god. The most terrifying killing god. Soon, the Devil Race army began to crumble. They fled toward the north in a panic. The pressure on the human army was greatly reduced. They immediately cheered excitedly and chased after the Devil Race soldiers. Ji Tianxing saw that the two armies were mixed up and it was no longer suitable for him to release powerful moves, so he stopped. After all, only about 400,000 Devil Race soldiers were left after his massacre, and they were all remnants of defeated soldiers. Leaving the 600,000 human soldiers to chase after the Devil Race soldiers would definitely result in a complete victory. He stood in the night sky with his hands behind his back, silently watching the battlefield and waiting for the battle to end. After a full 2 hours, the battle finally came to an end. Another 300,000 Devil Race soldiers were killed by the human army. The entire camp of the Devil Race was razed to the ground and completely destroyed. Only 80,000 Devil Race soldiers were left. They scattered into dozens of small groups and fled into the mountains in the north. Ji Tianxing sent out 2 generals, each leading 50,000 soldiers to chase after the Devil Race soldiers. The remaining human army remained on the battlefield. Not only did they have to clean up the battlefield, but they also had to treat the wounded soldiers. After they were done, they could return to the Starfall Valley. This would take another 2 hours. Ji Tianxing could not be bothered to wait, so he left this matter to the 4 generals. Chapter 21-28. After leaving the battlefield, Ji Tianxing flew in the night sky as he thought about his next plan. The barracks of Mount Fish Dragon had been destroyed and Song Yu had been killed by him. The commander-in-chief of the northern region was dead and there was no demon sage to guard the place. Now, there were only 2 barracks and a few forts outside Fallen Stars Valley and 2 million demon tribe troops. There were still 3 million demon tribe troops in the barracks and forts outside Sirius Pass. As long as he killed the 5 million demon tribe troops, the war in the northern region would be over. Even if there were some remaining demon tribe troops, they would not be able to pose much of a threat. Unknowingly, Ji Tianxing was 2,000 miles away from Mount Fish Dragon. It was the darkest moment of the day, just before dawn. He was flying over a vast mountain range and was still thinking about something. Suddenly, a crisp and pleasant female voice rang in the night sky. "Ho ho, the invincible commander, Chief Ji has fallen into such a sorry state? The sudden voice interrupted Ji Tianqing's thoughts. He immediately stopped and raised his eyebrows as he looked at the night sky in front of him. Thousands of meters away in the night sky, there was a woman in a golden dress who was indescribably beautiful. The woman was tall and beautiful. Her temperament was noble and coquettish, and she was full of a captivating aura. She stood in the night sky gracefully, and the phoenix crown on her head shone brightly. The long golden dress hung behind her and swayed gently in the night wind, making her look ethereal. Unfortunately, she looked at Ji Tianqing with a cold smile and her words were sarcastic. Ji Tianqing took a look at her and frowned. A look of astonishment flashed across his eyes. This woman, why does she look so familiar? Her spiritual soul aura is also familiar? Is she from the Chanu tribe? Martial Sage realm? Could it be her? These thoughts flashed across Ji Tianqing's mind. In just a breath, he recognized the woman. She was the leader of the Chanu tribe, Empress Tantai. However, even though Ji Tianqing's heart wavered, he remained calm on the surface and did not reveal any abnormalities. He looked at Empress Tantai indifferently and said coldly, "Who are you? Why are you blocking my way?" Empress Tantai looked at him meaningfully for a moment, then pretended to be charming and said with a smile, "This Empress is a citizen of the Scarlet Sun Empire. I wanted to welcome Marshal Ji's triumphant return. Who would have thought that Grand Marshal Ji would be so severely injured and end up in such a sorry state? He even abandoned hundreds of thousands of soldiers and fled back alone. It's really hard to believe that the invincible Marshal Ji actually has a time when he has to flee?" Empress Tantai pretended to be sorry, but her expression and tone were full of undisguised complacency and ridicule. Ji Tianqing was speechless for a moment, not knowing how to answer. He lowered his head and looked at himself. Only then did he come to a realization. It turned out that during the previous battle, his white robe was stained with blood and had long turned purplish black. He looked rather miserable. "I see," he said in his heart, basically guessing the purpose of Empress Tantai's visit. But he did not explain. He looked at Empress Tantai calmly and asked indifferently, "So, you deliberately waited for me here to laugh at me or to kill me?" Empress Tantai pretended to be stunned for a moment, looked at him with puzzlement and asked affectionately, "Why would Grand Marshal Ji think of this Empress as that kind of person? This Empress can't wait to love you, how can I kill you?" Hearing the words "love you," Ji Tianqing instinctively felt disgusted and frowned with a cold face. "Please conduct yourself with dignity, Ben Shuai and you don't know each other." Empress Tantai exclaimed in surprise and asked incredulously, "Grand Marshal Ji, do you really not remember this Empress? 1,000 years ago, this Empress was your most beloved woman. At that time, you held this Empress in the palm of your hand and cared for me in every way possible. You couldn't wait to hold this Empress in your mouth." Empress Tantai held her chest with both hands with a look of heartache. Her clear eyes were full of mist, and she looked like she was about to cry. Ji Tianqing frowned and almost couldn't help but curse her for being shameless. However, he guessed Empress Tantai's intention and could only remain calm and restrained. He shook his head expressionlessly and said, "You've got the wrong person, Ben Shuai is not yet 30 years old. For a woman like you who has lived for more than 1,000 years, Ben Shuai can't have emotional entanglements with you. Ben Shuai's taste is not that heavy." Empress Tantai was humiliated by him, but she was not angry. Instead, she felt even more wronged. 2 lines of crystal-clear tears burst out of her eyes and rolled down her white cheek. "Kenshin, you heartless man, did you really lose your memory and forget about this Empress? You once said that this Empress is your heart, your eyes, your most beloved Shao Tian. We once swore to the sun and the moon that we would be together for all eternity." Empress Tantai's expression and tone were very real, as if she was really heartbroken and hurt by love. Ji Tianqing had goosebumps all over his body. Unable to bear it, he shouted angrily with a black face, "Enough! Shut the hell up, Tantai Sien. This seat will say it for the last time, whether it is the previous life, this life, or the next life, this seat will not have any feelings for you. You can be shameless and have no bottom line, but this seat disdains to be associated with you, lest you tarnish this seat's reputation. Suddenly hearing this sentence, the tears on Empress Tantai's face dried up in an instant, and the sadness disappeared in an instant. She pointed her finger at Ji Tianxing and laughed out loud in an unrestrained manner. Ha ha, ha 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 ha. Didn't you pretend not to know this Empress? Finally can't pretend anymore? Kenshin. You didn't expect it, did you? After 1,000 years, you and I actually meet again. Ji Tianxing said indifferently, but when we meet again, you still haven't changed. You are still as unrestrained and disgusting as before. Empress Tantai's laughter gradually stopped, and her face gradually turned cold. She stared at Ji Tianxing with resentment. She walked slowly towards Ji Tianxing and said in a cold voice, Kenshin, this Empress has deep feelings for you, and has been infatuated with you for hundreds of years. In order to be with you, this Empress was not even afraid of being ridiculed by the world and took the initiative to send herself into your arms. But you? How did you treat this Empress back then? And how you humiliated this consort in front of everyone, could it be that you've forgotten? How can there be such a heartless and cold-blooded thing like you in this world? Now that you have come back from the dead and have started over, you are still so heartless when you see this Empress again. Even if you have been reborn, do you still have no feelings for this Empress? Ji Tianxing looked at her with a cold face and said firmly, Of course not. Ha 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 ha. Empress Tantai sneered with a face full of self-mockery. While walking towards him, she reached out to untie her golden dress. Chapter 21-29. Under the hazy moonlight, the night wind was cold. Empress Tantai's golden dress hung down to her waist, revealing her snow-white and tender shoulders. A thin white gauze wrapped around her chest, but it could not cover the towering peaks. Facing such a tempting scenery, Ji Tianxing was still indifferent. He closed his eyes and said indifferently, Tantai Sien, you know the answer, why do you want to humiliate yourself? Empress Tantai came in front of him, and stopped 10 steps away from him. The self-deprecating sneer on her face gradually turned into resentment and anger. She glared at Ji Tianxing and shouted coldly, You don't even dare to look at me? Do you really despise me so much? There are countless men in the world who are obsessed with me, only you are so disdainful of me. Ji Tianxing said calmly, No matter how beautiful the skin is, it's just a pink skeleton. Only shallow and lecherous men will be fascinated by you. There are countless men in the world, how can they all be infatuated with you? That's just your imagination. What's more, you have lived for thousands of years, and in order to cultivate the enchanted woman technique, you have sucked countless men dry. A pair of jade arms for thousands of men to sleep on, 2 red lips for tens of thousands of men to taste. As long as they are clean men, they will not like you. Empress Tantai stared at Ji Tianxing with wide eyes. After being stunned for a moment, she suddenly burst into laughter. A pair of jade arms for thousands of men to sleep on? 2 red lips for tens of thousands of men to taste? Ha 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 ha, so that's how it is. This consort finally understood. Was this the reason why you looked down on and humiliated this consort? Then what if I tell you that things are not as you think? I have indeed cultivated the enchanted woman technique and swallowed the essence and power of tens of thousands of men. But the men who have really had sex with me are no more than 10. And they are all famous overlords, all famous martial saints. Ji Tianxing still closed his eyes and said expressionlessly, 10, 100, or 1,000, what's the difference? You don't have to tell me anything because it has nothing to do with me. Tantai Siener, I'll make things clear again tonight. I hope you can respect yourself and not make any more mistake. He. Empress Tantai sneered as she put on her golden dress and fastened her collar. What a good don't make mistakes. Kenshin, you're still the same as before, cold and heartless, as stubborn as a rock. Before tonight, this consort's heart had softened and I had hesitated whether or not I should come and see you. However, this consort is still unwilling to give up. This consort still harbors a trace of hope, thinking that you might change your mind after being reborn. If you still haven't recovered your memories, this consort will wholeheartedly protect you and serve you wholeheartedly. Now, it seems that this consort was overthinking things again. Empress Tantai's tone became colder and colder. Apparently, she had completely given up and no longer had any illusions. Ji Tianxing opened his eyes and looked at her. With a calm expression, he said, "It's good that you can understand. Why bother me again? From now on, we won't have anything to do with each other. Don't appear in front of me. Goodbye." After that, he cupped his hands to Empress Tantai and was about to leave. Empress Tantai sneered, "He. You're really confident and naive. Do you think this consort came to you tonight just to reconnect with you? Impossible. You've hurt this consort too deeply and I've suffered great shame and humiliation. How can I just let it go like this? Back then, this consort wanted to take revenge on you, but your strength was too high and you ascended to the upper realm. Now that you're cultivating from the beginning and your strength is so weak, this is a great opportunity for this consort to take revenge. But don't worry, this consort will never kill you. This consort will let you live well, be this consort's boy toy, kneel at my feet every day and kiss my toes." As soon as her voice fell, Empress Tantai no longer concealed her intentions. Her palms shot out like lightning, and a pink brilliance shot towards Ji Tianxing. The pink light was the special power of the enchantress art, which had the effect of seducing the soul. Once eroded by the pink light, one would lose their mind and become a puppet under Empress Tantai's control. I've already expected that you're up to no good." Ji Tianxing was already prepared. He sneered contemptuously and shot out a dazzling star fire towards Empress Tantai. Boom! The star light and the pink light collided, and a thunderous sound erupted. The night sky within a few hundred miles was lit up, and the earth trembled violently. The two of them were evenly matched, and neither of them had gained the upper hand. Empress Tantai's face changed immediately. She frowned and said in a low voice, "Damn it! Your strength has recovered so quickly, and you've already surpassed the rank 6 martial sage realm?" Ji Tianxing chuckled, "You're wrong. I've just broken through to the martial sage realm tonight. You should have seen the heavenly vision earlier, right?" "That's impossible." Empress Tantai couldn't believe it and she shouted in shock, "You've killed 2 demon sages a long time ago, so you must have reached the martial sage realm long ago. Moreover, you've just broken through to the martial sage realm, so how can you have such strength?" Ji Tianxing said calmly, "Don't forget who I am. Nothing is impossible for me." Empress Tantai's body trembled, and she came to her senses, muttering to herself, "Yes. How could I forget that you're the famous Kenshin, the immortal king of the galaxy? However, it's too early for you to be proud. I was just testing you, and I haven't even used 70% of my strength. I've said that I'll make you my pet tonight, and you'll never escape." After saying that, Empress Tantai made a series of hand seals and quickly formed a mysterious seal. "Heavenly Star Rain, Enchantress seduces the soul." Following her cold shout, the night sky around Ji Tianxing immediately lit up with a pink light that soared into the sky. Swoosh! In the blink of an eye, the pink light formed a light shield that covered a radius of 300 miles, covering the entire area. Around Ji Tianxing, 4 women appeared out of thin air. They were about 100 feet tall, and they were wearing short skirts. These women all looked 70% like Empress Tantai. Their appearances were full of exotic charm. Their clear eyes were captivating, and they exuded an intoxicating charm. The 4 women were slim, and they were as plump as peaches. They were so tender that it seemed like water would come out of them. They were only wearing a chest wrap and a very short skirt that was made of translucent white gauze. From time to time, some seductive scenes could be seen, which made one's imagination run wild. This huge pink light shield was Empress Tantai's unique skill, the ecstasy realm. Inside it, one's spiritual soul would be invaded at any time, and one would not be able to concentrate. Chapter 2130. An invisible soul-sucking power quietly invaded Ji Tianqing's body, causing his mind to be distracted. He quickly activated the power of the heaven-mending orb to wrap his divine soul to keep his mind clear. At the same time, Empress Tantai's sleeves fluttered as she danced with two colorful ribbons in her hands, sprinkling dazzling light that blotted out the sky. Ji Tianqing quickly took out the Burial of Heaven sword and used his unique swordsmanship to fight against her. Sword of Shattering Sun. The Burial of Heaven sword instantly stabbed out hundreds of sword lights, forming a mysterious sword array and stabbing at the dazzling light all over the sky. Bang! 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 In a series of muffled sounds, the sword lights and colorful dazzling light exploded at the same time, turning into a rain of fragments that scattered in the field. At this time, the four demon beauties rushed over and besieged him. They were holding a sword, a jade flute, a long whip, and two sabers respectively, slashing at Ji Tianqing. With every movement, the thin white veil fluttered, revealing a blushing scene that made people unable to look directly at. If it were a lecherous lecher, it would be a feast for the eyes. Unfortunately, Ji Tianqing was not a lecher and did not bother to look at it. He simply closed his eyes, using the heavenly dragon palm with his left hand and a dozen sword lights with his right hand to resist the siege of the four demon beauties. Bang! 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 Clang! Clang! A burst of sword lights colliding and the sound of weapons clashing came out, and the four demon beauties were all sent flying by Ji Tianqing. They did not cry out in pain or scream, but let out a burst of shuddering gasps and coquettishness, which was very nauseating. Ji Tianqing glared at Empress Tantai fiercely and scolded with a black face, "Tantai Siener, you really have no bottom line, using such a dirty trick." Empress Tantai waved her colorful ribbons to speed up the attack while laughing loudly. "Ha ha ha, which man is not lecherous? Isn't this what you want? If you want to see it, just enjoy it. Why hide it? Shameless." Ji Tianqing frowned and scolded, using all his strength to fight back. However, the angrier he was, the happier Empress Tantai was. While fighting Ji Tianqing, she threw him a coquettish glance and said with a charming tone, "Those four beautiful women are not illusions, they are my trusted maidservants who have been carefully cultivated by me for hundreds of years. Why don't we stop here? Let's go find a cave and let this consort and the four servant girls serve you well. Both of us are proficient in the enchanted woman art. Coupled with our special physiques, I guarantee that you'll be unable to extricate yourself from the ecstasy." Ji Tianqing's face darkened and he scolded coldly, "Tantai Siener, do you have any sense of shame? Your mind is filled with the thoughts of men and women having sexual intercourse. Instead of being ashamed of it, you're proud of it. What an eye-opener." The smile on Empress Tantai's face grew brighter as she said in a seductive manner, "Back then, you were so high and mighty that you didn't even spare me a glance. Even if this consort were to kneel in front of you and beg to be your personal maidservant without any status, you would still refuse. I didn't expect you to have such a day. Even if you're humiliated by this consort, no matter how angry you are, you can't do anything to me. Ha 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 ha. This is so interesting, so satisfying. This consort can't wait any longer. I just want to capture you immediately, turn you into a pet boy, and then find ways to pamper you. Don't worry, this consort has a lot of tricks. Even if I pamper you for 10 years and you don't get out of bed, there won't be any repeated positions." Ji Tianqing was completely speechless. He had fought and killed tens of thousands of enemies all his life. He had experienced tens of thousands of battles and killed millions of enemies. He had personally experienced all kinds of dangerous scenes, such as mountains of swords, seas of fire, rivers of blood, and purgatory. Only this battle was so special. This was the most erotic, awkward, and speechless battle in his life. No matter if it was a sinister and cunning enemy or a fierce and overbearing enemy, he had ways to deal with and solve them. Only a woman like Tante Sien-er, who had no bottom line and was even more shameless, made him feel deeply helpless. Tante Sien-er was born to be an unrestrained and seductive demoness. Every look in her eyes and every word she said was tinged with a pink hue. Normal people couldn't communicate with her properly. Ji Tianxing not only closed his eyes, but he also didn't even bother to speak and launched a counterattack with all his strength. He used his divine sense to explore the entire ecstasy domain, fighting with Empress Tante and the Four Beauties. Under the investigation of his divine sense, Empress Tante and the Four Beauties were all white skeletons, without the slightest sense of beauty. Even if Empress Tante kept saying lewd words that made people blush and let out a few rippling gasps from time to time, he turned a deaf ear to it. In just 100 breaths of time, the two sides fought over 1,000 moves, but there was no clear winner. Ji Tianxing was deeply besieged, but he was also unharmed. Empress Tante had been holding the initiative, attacking like a storm, but she still couldn't gain the upper hand. As for the Four Beauties, they were sent flying again and again by Ji Tianxing, adding a few more wounds on their bodies, and dark red blood oozed out. But they didn't know pain at all, and turned a blind eye to their injuries, desperately besieging Ji Tianxing. Ji Tianxing found that Empress Tante had lied to him. They were not 4 maidservants at all, nor were they living people, but 4 puppets refined by a secret method, similar to magic weapons. However, these 4 beauties were refined very exquisitely and lifelike. After the two sides fought for more than a dozen moves, Ji Tianxing decisively seized the opportunity and used his unique skill. Burial of Heaven's Sword! He shouted coldly, holding the Burial of Heaven's sword with both hands, and stabbed at the sky with all his strength. Swoosh! A black light rushed into the sky as if to pierce the sky. This sword technique was the last move of the Burial of Heaven 9 swords, and it was also the most powerful move. In the next moment, the pitch-black beam of light pierced the pink light barrier and exploded with a thunderous boom. Kaboom! A large hole was instantly pierced through the gigantic pink light barrier, and cracks began to appear all around it. Empress Tante's ecstasy domain, which she was proud of, was pierced by Ji Tianxing's sword. When the domain was broken, she also suffered a backlash. Her body stiffened immediately, and blood flowed from the corner of her mouth. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Ji Tianxing formed a sword technique with both hands and performed another unique sword technique. 10,000 swords return. Following his cold shout, tens of thousands of cracks instantly appeared in the gloomy sky above. Outside the void, endless star power condensed into tens of thousands of giant starry swords, pouring through the cracks. In just a short breath, tens of thousands of starry swords fell like a meteor shower. Boom! 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 The starry swords all hit the pink light shield, and a loud noise shook the 9 heavens. A total of more than 5,000 starry swords collapsed on the spot, and turned into starlight that illuminated the night sky. The pink light shield within a radius of 300 miles was also completely destroyed and torn apart. Empress Tante was using all her strength to cast a spell, controlling the ecstasy domain to resist the bombardment of the 10,000 swords. But she failed in the end and couldn't block it. Puff. Chapter 2131. The ecstasy domain collapsed and dissipated. Ji Tianxing and Empress Tante's figures reappeared in the night sky. The 4 scarred beauties temporarily lost their function and were put away by Empress Tante. She raised her sleeve to wipe the blood from the corner of her mouth, and slowly looked up at Ji Tianxing. Her eyes were full of resentment as she scolded, "You heartless man, what a cruel heart!" Ji Tianxing looked at her expressionlessly and said calmly, "I have already said that there is nothing between you and me. I have never had feelings for you. How can I be heartless?" Empress Tantai frowned and curled her lips. I don't care. In short, you are the one who has betrayed me. Ji Tianxing also frowned. With a dark face, he said with an indifferent tone, Don't you want to take revenge? Do you still want to fight? If not, I'm leaving. After that, he turned around and was about to leave. He was too lazy to be entangled with Empress Tantai. Empress Tantai did not give up. She teleported in front of him and blocked his way. Don't you think you can get rid of me? After being humiliated by you, I have endured more than 300 years of humiliation and had to live in seclusion. For the past 1,000 years, I have hated you day and night. Now that the heavens have taken pity on you and sent you back to me, how can I let you go? Ji Tianxing looked at her coldly and said in a serious tone, Tantai Xian, I am warning you for the last time. Don't pester me endlessly, or you will have to bear the consequences. Empress Tantai saw that he seemed to be really angry and immediately put on an aggrieved expression and was about to cry. She slowly walked towards Ji Tianxing and said in a choked voice, You bastard, why do you treat me like this? I am so infatuated with you, why do you keep rejecting and hurting me? I know that you were obsessed with martial arts in your previous life and never had feelings for any woman. But in this life, you already have a sweetheart, which proves that you are not a god but also a person with feelings. If you can love that woman deeply, why can't you give me some of your feelings? Ji Tianxing's expression was indifferent as he said, It seems that Guanji really is a spy sent by you. She actually managed to find out so much information. That's right, not only did I love her deeply, but I also married her and had a pair of children with her. She is the person I love the most in this life, the person I will protect for the rest of my life, but you are not qualified to be mentioned in the same breath as her. Not to mention that I am her husband and must be loyal to her, even if she didn't exist, I would never accept you. Empress Tantai's face was filled with despair, and her bright eyes dimmed. She stood in front of Ji Tianxing and said in a low voice, All right, since you already have someone in your heart, I will fulfill your wish and will no longer pester you. However, you and I have been entangled for 1,000 years, but I have never even held your hand. I only have one wish. Can you give me a hug? This way I'll give up. From now on, I'll never appear in front of you again. After saying that, she slowly stretched out her arms, as if she wanted to hug Ji Tianxing. Ji Tianxing instinctively stepped back and was about to sternly refuse. But her face was pale and her spirit was dispirited. She looked weak and pitiful, but her eyes were full of hope. She laughed bitterly at herself and said, In front of the world, I am the noble and arrogant empress of the Cha Nu tribe, but in front of you, I have abandoned all my dignity and even have no bottom line. Are you really so heartless that you won't even give me a trace of sympathy and pity? Ji Tianxing frowned and fell into hesitation. After a moment of silence, he asked in a deep voice, Can you swear to God that if I fulfill your wish, you will completely give up and never pester me again? Empress Tantai's eyes were rekindled with hope, and she raised her hand to swear to God without hesitation. I, Tantai Xian swear that as long as Kenshin fulfills my wish, I will leave from his sight and never appear again. If I violate this oath, I am willing to be punished by God. Seeing Tantai Xian's serious face and firm and decisive tone, Ji Tianxing gradually lowered his guard. Perhaps I was indeed too heartless and too harsh on her? This thought flashed through his mind, and he sighed secretly and said in a calm tone, In that case, I promise you, but don't have any improper thoughts. After that, he stood upright in the night sky with his arms hanging by his side and closed his eyes. Kenshin, thank you. Empress Tantai thanked him sincerely, and her eyes flashed with joy. Then, she stretched out her weak arms, hugged Ji Tianxing's waist tightly, and put her cheek on his chest. Feeling his body temperature and heartbeat, as well as the masculine breath of a man, Empress Tantai's heart suddenly beat faster, and a happy smile appeared on her face. The next moment, a golden light suddenly lit up in her palm, and a dark golden rope appeared. At the same time, she whispered in a strange tone, "Kenshin, you miscalculated. How can I let you go? How can I bear to see you with another woman?" When she said this, the dark golden rope in her palm began to dance like a spirit snake. In the blink of an eye, the dark golden rope had wrapped itself around Ji Tianxing's body more than 30 times, completely tying him up. He was tied up tightly, and his arms were pressed tightly to his sides. His legs and feet could not move. Not only that, the dark golden rope was not an ordinary object. It released a mysterious and powerful sealing power, and sealed his body and spiritual power on the spot. He was tied up like a dumpling, and his body was stiff and fixed in place, and he had lost the ability to resist. Other than opening and closing his eyes, he could do nothing else. Ha 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 ha! Success! It took me 100 years to find this god-binding rope, and it was refined from the legendary tendons of the divine dragon. Not to mention that you are only a martial sage. Even if you are a martial god, you will not be able to escape from it. Empress Tantai let go of him and laughed complacently. She stood in front of Ji Tianxing, reached out and stroked his cheek, and said with a serious face, "From tonight onwards you are mine, and you will not be able to escape in this lifetime." Ji Tianxing looked at her calmly. He didn't panic, nor did he reveal a trace of anger. "As I expected, you have been intertwined in love and hate for thousands of years, and your mind has long been distorted. How can you abide by the oath? However, you have just made an oath, and you have broken it in the blink of an eye. Are you really not afraid of the wrath of heaven?" Empress Tantai shook her head, stretched out 2 fingers, and pressed them on his lips, and said with a smile, "It is not that my mind is distorted, but that I have long gone crazy. As for the wrath of heaven? As long as I can have you, so what if I suffer the wrath of heaven?" Ji Tianxing sighed helplessly and asked, "What is it about me that makes you so crazy? Tell me, and I will change, okay?" Empress Tantai thought seriously for a moment and said in a firm tone, "You are the #1 genius, the #1 talent, the most mysterious and the most powerful man in the world. I really can't find any man in this world who is more outstanding than you. So, you are destined to be my man." Chapter 2132. Tantai Xiener, you are playing with fire. Ji Tianxing looked at Empress Tantai coldly and warned her in a solemn tone. Empress Tantai didn't take it seriously. She curled her lips in disdain and sneered, "Now you are tied up by my god-binding rope and can only be at my mercy. Besides threatening me, what can you do to me? I won't play with fire tonight, I will only play with you." In Ji Tianxing's mind, the voice of Burial of Heaven immediately sounded. "Ahem. I have endured for a long time. This time I really can't help it. There are some things that need to be said. This Tantai Xiener has already fallen in love with you. Why don't you take pity on her and give in to her?" Ji Tianxing's forehead was full of black lines. He replied with his divine soul, "Burial of Heaven, you are encouraging me like this. Are you tempted? Why don't you transform into a human form and go back with her instead of me and accompany her?" "Humph!" Burial of Heaven snorted disdainfully and said in a low voice, "This old man is the soul of the divine sword, not a mortal creature. How can I have a mortal heart? However, her so-called god-binding rope is a fake. You can obviously break free. Why are you willing to be tied up by her? This old man thinks you have a hard mouth but a soft heart. Your mouth says no, but your body is very honest." "Shut up!" Ji Tianxing shouted angrily, "Don't frame me. I don't have that kind of idea. I have always stayed away from this kind of wanton crazy woman. The reason why I didn't make a move is that I want to see what she wants to do. 1,000 years have passed, and the situation of the continent is different from before. It has long become very complicated." "Okay, you are right," Burial of Heaven responded indifferently, "then you go back with her to the bridal chamber." "You!" Ji Tianxing was suddenly angry, but he couldn't defend himself. At this time, Empress Tantai saw him silent, stretched out 2 fingers, raised his chin, and asked with a charming smile, "What are you thinking about? Do you think it is a bit inappropriate for us to consummate our marriage here in the wilderness? Ha ha ha, don't worry. I will take you back to the imperial court and settle you down in the palace. I will also send many maids to serve you." After that, she carried Ji Tianxing in one hand and flew to the southeast. Ji Tianxing frowned, and a look of doubt flashed in his eyes. He thought, imperial court? Which imperial court? Is it the imperial court of the imperial court of Chang? Can it be that Tantai Xian in the imperial court of the empire? Thinking of this, he felt things the matter. Therefore, he suppressed his doubts and allowed Empress Tantai to carry him as they flew through the night sky at lightning speed. Empress Tantai's speed was extremely fast. Every step she took could cross 50 miles. In a short 2 hours she had flown 30,000 kilometers away. In order not to be discovered, Empress Tantai flew 10,000 meters above the clouds and sped up. About 10 hours later, she finally arrived at the imperial city of the Changyang Empire. At this time, she used the invisibility secret technique to hide herself and Ji Tianxing. Whoosh! She descended from the sky and flew to the bustling imperial city of the Changyang Empire. It was afternoon, and the warm sun shone on the Changyang Empire. But inside and outside the Changyang Empire, there was a bleak scene. The city walls were full of armored soldiers. In the imperial city, there were no crowds or merchants. The streets and alleys were deserted. Obviously, most of the people in the Changyang Empire had fled because of the war in the north. Ji Tianxing looked at the Changyang Empire calmly and thought to himself, Tantai Xian are really colluded with the Changyang Empire. Her nest is in the imperial city. So, it must be Du Chengchang who deliberately arranged for Guanji to be a spy by my side. After a while, Empress Tantai took him and flew into the magnificent imperial palace. The imperial palace of the Changyang Empire was located in the center of the city. It covered more than 10 miles and had tens of thousands of houses and palaces. It was very solemn and imposing. Empress Tantai's residence was in the inner courtyard of the imperial palace, in the main hall of the Phoenix Palace. Phoenix Palace? Isn't this the palace of the Empress? Could it be that Tantai Xian she married the Changyang Holy Emperor and became the Empress? Ji Tianxing frowned and a cold light flashed in his eyes. Sure enough, after Empress Tantai entered the Phoenix Palace, she returned to the luxurious and bright palace. She threw Ji Tianxing on the bed and covered him with a brocade quilt. Then, she called in a dignified tone, "Where is Wanru?" The door of the palace opened immediately. A young woman in a palace dress walked in quickly with her head lowered. She walked to the middle of the palace and bowed respectfully. "This servant greets the Empress. Please give me your orders." Empress Tantai said calmly, "Help me bathe and change my clothes." This servant obeys. The maidservant bowed and exited the bedchamber. Empress Tantai returned to the bedside and stroked Ji Tianxing's cheek. She smiled tenderly and said, "Don't worry, I'll take a bath now. I'll be clean and then I'll pamper you." Ji Tianxing felt a chill and goosebumps appeared all over his body. He almost couldn't help but break free from the god-binding rope. But he held back, closed his eyes and remained silent. He wanted to see what other tricks Tantai Xian had up her sleeves. Most importantly, what role did the Changyang Holy Emperor play? Unknowingly, a quarter of an hour passed. After Empress Tantai took a bath, she took off her half-foot-high phoenix coronet, tied her hair into a noblewoman's bun, and changed into a bright yellow dress. She returned to the palace alone, closed the door, and cast a spell to cover the entire palace. In this way, no matter what happened in the palace, the outside couldn't hear it. After she was ready, she kicked off her shoes and walked barefoot on the soft carpet toward the phoenix bed. Swoosh! The quilt was lifted. Empress Tantai stood by the bed and looked at Ji Tianxing with a smile. She reached out and brushed the long hair on her shoulder. She said with a charming face, "I've waited for 1,000 years, and my wish is finally coming true. Today you are my most beloved Kenshin. I will do my best to serve you and bring you the most unforgettable pleasure. But tomorrow you will be my male pet and servant. You can only be humiliated and ordered by me. So enjoy today." After saying that, she slowly leaned over and sat on Ji Tianqing's body. She reached out and untied her long dress. An invisible charm spread out from her body and enveloped Ji Tianqing. The curtains around the phoenix bed also fell silently. A scene of spring breeze was about to unfold. But at this moment Ji Tianqing, who had been keeping his eyes closed and silent, suddenly spoke. "I've already said that you are playing with fire. My patience has been exhausted, and it's time to end everything." Chapter 2133. Empress Tantai had just taken off half of her clothes and was about to untie the white veil on her chest. But when she heard Ji Tianqing's words and saw the god-binding rope break into more than a dozen pieces, she was stunned on the spot. At the same time, Ji Tianqing raised his hand and slapped at her. Bam! The palm hit Empress Tantai's chest and sent her flying on the spot. She fell into the bedroom. Puff! She opened her mouth and spat out a mouthful of blood. Her face became as pale as paper. She did not have time to tidy up her clothes and quickly stood up. Her eyes widened as she stared at Ji Tianqing in disbelief. "My god-binding rope! How is this possible? How can you destroy my god-binding rope?" She never thought that the god-binding rope that she had searched the entire continent to find would be broken by Ji Tianqing. Ji Tianqing, who was tied up, was originally a fish on the chopping board, waiting to be slaughtered by her. But now everything was ruined. Ji Tianqing reached out and brushed off the 2 pieces of god-binding rope. He said expressionlessly, "The real god-binding rope is a divine artifact. How can you have it? This god-binding rope of yours is nothing more than an ordinary saint artifact." "No. This is impossible." Empress Tantai shouted coldly and shook her head repeatedly. She could not accept this result. "He won't lie to me. This god-binding rope is indeed refined from dragon tendons," Ji Tianqing said indifferently. "Only the dragon tendons of the 9th heaven divine dragon can be refined into a real god-binding rope. Your god-binding rope is made from the tendons of a flood dragon. Who is this he you are talking about?" He vaguely guessed that this god-binding rope was not found by Empress Tantai. It was very likely that some man had refined this dragon tendons into a magic weapon and gave it to her as a god-binding rope. Empress Tantai did not respond to Ji Tianqing's words. She looked at the broken rope on the ground and cursed angrily. "Damn bastard, I trusted you so much and even became your wife. How dare you lie to me?" When Ji Tianqing heard her say this, he immediately understood that the person she was talking about was most likely the Scarlet Sun Holy Emperor. At this time, Empress Tantai raised her head and glared at him with resentment. "So what if the god-binding rope is fake? Since you're here, don't even think about escaping." As she spoke, she formed hand seals with both hands and shot out dozens of colorful lights at lightning speed. Swish! Swish! The multicolored light flew out of the sleeping chamber and landed in all directions, immediately activating a sealing formation. Shwa! Outside the sleeping chamber, a 5-colored light shield with a radius of thousands of feet immediately lit up, enveloping the entire sleeping chamber. This was a saint-level grand formation that Empress Tantai had spent a lot of time and effort to set up. As soon as the grand formation was activated, it immediately released a terrifying invisible force and suppressed Ji Tianqing. At the same time, 2 colorful long silk appeared in Empress Tantai's hands. "If I can't get the man, no other woman can." She glared at Ji Tianqing with a venomous look in her eyes. She waved a pair of rainbow-colored long silk and swept it towards Ji Tianqing. Swish! 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 In an instant, the long silk danced out hundreds of colorful dazzling lights, like sharp blades, shrouding his figure. "You've already gone mad," Ji Tianqing shouted in a deep voice. "Today, we'll settle this once and for all." As he spoke, he formed a sword seal with both hands and released hundreds of sword lights, stabbing toward Empress Tantai. These sword lights were more than 10 feet long, formed by the power of stars and 5-colored divine thunder. Their power was very violent. Bang! 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 The sword lights collided with the colorful dazzling lights, causing a series of muffled sounds, shaking the entire sleeping chamber violently. A violent shock wave exploded, instantly blowing up the sleeping quarters into smithereens. The ground paved with golden stones collapsed and the surrounding walls burst into rubble, turning a radius of 10,000 feet into ruins. Only the light barrier with a radius of 10,000 feet was still intact, sealing the ruins. Heavenly maidens scattering flowers. A cold light flashed in Empress Tantai's eyes as she finally made up her mind to use her trump card. She shouted coldly, waved the colorful long silk with both hands, and flew gracefully into the sky. The next moment, her figure became illusory and blurred, spinning at an extremely fast speed. Swish! 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 The colorful long silk splashed out endless light blades and pink light balls, like a torrential downpour, drowning Ji Tianqing. Within a radius of 10,000 feet, it was completely filled with light blades, like a pink hurricane. Not to mention a body of flesh and blood, even a divine artifact would be crushed into powder. However, Ji Tianqing's body lit up with silver starlight, forming an oval-shaped shield to protect himself. Thousands of light blades kept stabbing the starlight shield, letting out crisp, ding-ding-dang-dang sounds, but they could not break the shield. No matter how strong the light blades were, and how fierce their auras were, they could only leave dents on the starlight shield. Ji Tianqing continued to circulate his magic power, and soon the dents on the shield were repaired, leaving him unharmed. He looked up at Empress Tantai and said expressionlessly, "Tantai Xian, or give up? 1,000 years have passed, and you haven't made much progress. You're only a level 7 martial sage. It's harder than ascending to heaven if you want to kill me." His tone was calm and indifferent, as if he was stating a fact. Empress Tantai was so angry that she had almost lost her mind and patience. "No. I don't believe it. You've just become a martial sage. How can you be my opponent? In another year or so, you'll be even stronger, and I won't have a chance anymore." Ji Tianqing shook his head gently and said coldly, "In terms of martial strength, you're too late. In terms of feelings, you've never had a chance. All right, I don't have time to play with you anymore. You should wake up." After saying that, he slowly raised his right hand, put his index finger and middle finger together, and pointed to the sky. "Sword, come." As he shouted coldly, a huge crack suddenly appeared in the distant sky. A dazzling golden light appeared, as dazzling as the sun. Swoosh! It was a sacred and mighty giant golden sword. It fell like a meteor, and slammed towards Empress Tantai. At this moment, it was as if there were 2 suns in the sky. The dazzling golden light shrouded the entire red sun imperial city, and no one could open their eyes. Kaboom! The giant golden sword, which was thousands of feet tall, slammed into the 7-colored light shield with a divine power that could pierce through everything, and exploded with a loud bang. The 7-colored light shield was pierced through by the giant sword, and a huge hole appeared. Then, the giant golden sword slammed into Empress Tantai, and her figure was submerged. Kacha kacha! A series of clear and melodious sounds of explosion rang out as the 7-colored light barrier within a radius of 3,000 meters collapsed, bursting out with dazzling fragments that blotted out the sky and covered the earth.